Go ahead, Kevin.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Robertson. I'd like to call the April 26, 2021 meeting of the Town of Niskayuna Planning Board and Zoning Commission to order. Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme. Don't believe he's on yet. Mr. Screbutennis.
Here.
Mr. Khan.
Here.
Mr. McPartland.
Here.
Mr. Darpino.
Here.
Mr. Oster.
Here.
Ms. Gold.
Present.
Ms. Shenfield is excused. And Chairman Walsh.
Here, and I see it looks like Mr. Laflamme has joined us. So, Mr.
Present.
Laflamme is also present, so we're all set. Okay, thank you. First up is the approval of the minutes from the April 12th, 2021 meeting. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Approved for motion to approve by Mr. Oster, and do I have a second?
I'll second it.
And seconded by Mr. Khan. Thank you. Corrections. I have a few here. I guess I'll get started. Okay, on page 1, line 26, just a simple typo. Page 1, line 26, Shenfield stated, I think it's one supposed to be instead of on, one mistake, even though there's a couple, but one mistake will work. Okay. And then the other comment I have is throughout the resolution, when we're talking regarding, throughout the minutes, when we're talking regarding Kelt's Farm, we were talking about a tentative resolution for tonight. And throughout the minutes, on several different lines, it says temporary resolution. So I'd like to make the request that we just do a search and replace anywhere that it's regarding Kelt's Farm with the word tentative, since that's what the correct word is, okay? And then I know Mr. Oster, I'll speak for you. Mr. Oster sent an email. I got it right here somewhere. Yeah, Mr. Oster sent an email, line 93. It states, I think it says, Mr. Oster asked if the board should wait for any other information. And the correction is, Mr. Oster asked whether the town was waiting for any further information. All right, and I know that you have that in writing from Mr. Oster. Thank you. Does anybody else have any corrections or changes to the minutes? No other changes or corrections? Can I have a motion?
Oops, wait, we just have a typo on line 29 as well that Clark noticed, which we'll just update, but it says the minutes were approved with unanimously. So I think we would just strike with and then.
Okay, great. All right. I make a motion that we accept, or we modify the minutes with those comments as we just stated. So this is for a modification or amendment to the minutes. So I get a second on that. I seconded by Mr. Khan. All those in favor of modifying the minutes signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay. Hearing no one opposed, I guess I'll just make a motion that we approve the minutes as amended. And can I have a second on that?
I'll second it.
And seconded by Mr. Khan. All right. And all those in favor of approval of the minutes as amended signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay. Hearing none opposed, we'll approve the minutes as amended. Thank you, everybody. And thank you to the planning office for putting those together. We have no public hearings tonight, so we'll move right to privilege of the floor. Ms. Robertson, you have somebody queued up for privilege of the floor. Anyone wishing to be heard regarding any planning zoning matters in the town of Niskayuna, please state your name and address for the record, and we'll listen to what you have to say. Okay.
Yeah, I didn't receive any letters, but I know that Mrs. Holmes is on the line to speak.
Okay, great. You're all set, Ms. Holmes?
Okay. Good evening, Planning Board. Rebecca Holmes, 1379 Van Antwerp Road, commenting on the subdivision at 1380 Van Antwerp Road. So tonight you're voting on the seeker declaration. If you vote negative declaration, you will be accomplishing two things. First, you will be disregarding your own highly qualified Conservation Advisory Council yet again. Even if you throw out their thoughts about the historic nature of the property, you must still consider their other major justifications for a positive seeker declaration, namely the, quote, tripling of the intensity of use of the land, the impairment of the character and quality of the neighborhood, and the adverse change to natural resources. The CAC stated that there was a, quote, high probability of these effects and that they would be irreversible, setting wide-ranging and detrimental precedents for future development of other, older, larger, character-rich parcels. And then they voted unanimously. They sounded the alarm big time. And Dart Strayer, the chairman of the CAC, was also a co-chair of the 2013 Comprehensive Plan. So he, no doubt, has a significant understanding of not only seeker, but also the comprehensive plan and its intent. He should be considered an expert. Second, if you vote for the negative seeker declaration, you will be writing the recipe for the loophole that future developers will use to justify segmented minor subdivisions and avoid the extra scrutiny, costs, and requirements associated with major subdivisions. That recipe is: do a minor subdivision, then transfer ownership to someone else, maybe a relative or an LLC, then do another minor, non-contiguous, non-segmented subdivision. Change owners again, and repeat as often as necessary until the land is used up, and never face the consequences of a full-scale major subdivision. Mr. Smith, the developer, could be followed by Sally Smith Johnson, followed by Mr. Smith, LLC, followed by SJ Building Company, and so on. You might realize the parties were related, but you might not. If that's the loophole, that if it's a different owner, then it's not contiguous, then get ready. Because every builder in town is watching this loophole precedent unfold. They've been warned for years that towns don't like this. And now they're being told exactly how to do it. Be careful of setting a bad precedent. That's it for tonight, and thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Holmes. Anyone else wishing to be heard that's online? And you have nobody else or any emails, Laura, you said? Nothing to be read?
I don't
Okay.
have anything to read. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Hearing no one else or seeing no one else, then we'll close privilege of the floor. We have no unfinished business tonight. So under new business, we have a few resolutions tonight. First resolution being resolution 2021-12, a resolution to make a secret determination and call for a public hearing for a 3-lot minor subdivision at 1380 Van Antwerp Road. And I'll just summarize the resolves on the resolution. Now, therefore be it hereby resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission hereby determine that the project will not have a significant effect on the environment, and hereby directs the town planner to file a negative secret declaration with the following comments. 1, the applicant shall preserve as many trees and shrubs as possible. 2, a stormwater analysis shall be reviewed by the engineering department. 3, the architectural review board shall review the new homes for compatibility with the surrounding community. And be it hereby further resolved that this planning board does hereby call for a public hearing to be held on Monday, May 10th, 2021 at 7 p.m. by video conference to consider the application of Lou and Elena Lisi for a 3-lot minor subdivision at 1380 Van Antwerp Road. Do I have a motion on the resolution?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
That was moved by Mr. Scributennis. Do I have a second? No? Did somebody hit? Is there a second? I can. Okay, sorry. Your volume was low, Mr. McPartlin. And that was seconded by Mr. McPartlin. And we'll have some discussion. Comments from the board?
Mr. Chairman, we have, as a planning board, I mean, it was an interesting comment made during privilege of the floor about the concern about sort of the segmented subdivisions. This planning board does have the power for the future to then say you can't further subdivide as part of a condition of the approval, of the approval.
Yeah, of any subdivision. We talked about if there's a concern and the possibility based on, say, the size of the lots, that yes, we always have that prerogative. And I believe in this situation, well, and we're not done with this process yet, but if there's enough land that it could be further subdivided, it's something we consider as a condition of the resolution as we go forward. I heard what Ms. Holmes had to say. you know, we got, guidance from the legal department, not a common plan of development. We're concerned about water. We will be looking at the water. We have asked the applicant to update based on the relocation of the garage and the cutting away of any other impervious surface to pavement in order to accomplish relocating the garage, and that will need to be updated and reviewed by the engineering department. And again, we've told that it was not a common plan of development, so we're just following our guidance, and we'll have a public hearing, and we'll hear what everybody has to say as we go through the process.
I guess I would like to hear Mr. Briggs' comment on the comment we heard in the privilege of the floor relative to related entities being first developer, second developer.
I disagree.
Okay, so you don't believe that has any legal standing?
No. I explained that at the last meeting.
Right. Yeah. I know. I was there. I saw the minutes. I just wanted to comment on that.
So it's okay to have a variety of opinions. I don't disagree that this is not a common plan of development, but I do disagree that it's developer dependent. I think that the time span on this has been long enough, and that the coverage on the first 3 lots is now fully established where it wasn't before. So I don't think that it's wrong to say that's not a common plan of development anymore. But I mean, I disagree that it's developer dependent.
Questions, comments?
I guess this is Crystal Flan. I guess the guidance perhaps is, how do we prevent something similar from happening again? Was there an expectation on the planning board to totally exhaust any possibility of uncommon development?
Well, that's what you have, Mr. Laflamme. That's why you have a legal department. And if I had found that there was some causal connection between the parties, then I certainly would have said that this is an attempt to circumvent the common development plan, but I didn't find that.
Okay.
But guys, there's actually 2 things going on here, right? So DEC's common plan of development relates to stormwater and whether or not a SWIP is required. And that has a lot to do with like time between developments and how much land was cleared and how much is connected. And if there was intent on the first subdivision, to subdivide the second subdivision. And that's DEC. That's related to what you have to do for stormwater. It would trigger like a stormwater detention pond that would potentially have to be deeded to the town of Niskayuna to maintain stormwater over time. Developing minor subdivisions, serial subdivisions in the town of Niskayuna under our subdivision code, I don't know that that's directly dealt with in our code, but that's something that you can look at over time. That's why when you're looking at big pieces of land that are left over, that you're trying to figure out what's going to happen with those. I think we all acknowledge that maybe we didn't look as hard at the large parcel the first time we looked at this property, not hard enough. But I think from then on, we've been looking very hard at any parcel that has the potential to be subdivided in the future and trying to parse out what is going to happen with that parcel. And if we can plan for the future subdivision, if there doesn't want to be a future subdivision, if the person's willing to deed restrict it to no further subdivision, all of those things are important and follow through as we're reviewing these subdivisions, right? So it's actually 2 different things: serial subdivisions under our subdivision code versus DEC permit coverage for a SWIP. And those are 2 different things.
So, Laura, by the way, Mr. Briggs, thank you for the response. Laura, this is Chris again. I guess as I think back, when we reviewed the first application, the lands that are in question now really were never part of that conversation. We explored the potential. I know we talked about the lay of the land, the barn, the historic relevance, that portion of the land. But then, if I recall, it kind of changed gears, and it was no longer about that. It was about just the 3 additional lots. And is that what you're saying? Is that we need to make sure we review the potential full lands associated with the deed when it's on the single deed? More?
So it's nobody ever has a crystal ball, right? But anytime you guys are looking at a minor subdivision, with one large lot left. I think it's important, unless we change our subdivision code, you know, and we talked about changing our subdivision code, but there's always going to be some kind of a time limit. It's never going to be perfect. If you put in the subdivision code, you can only have a minor subdivision if you subdivide the remainder of that land within 2 years. It triggers major subdivision or something like that. And you may or may not be able to put that into the code. Like Paul Riggs would have to weigh in on that. But there's a potential that you could put some kind of threshold, outline it, so that developers know, everybody knows, you can't have serial subdivisions with a certain time frame. But it's always has to be a certain time frame. If you put 2 years, 5 years, and it has to be reasonable. Like you couldn't put like 20 years, right? It's never going to be perfect, but it just means that when you guys are looking at a minor subdivision with a large piece of land left, you guys are going to have to know in your head to think and remember and be like, what's the deal with this large parcel? Why are we leaving it large? Does it have wetlands? Can you deed restriction it? Like, does it have access to roads? It's all the stuff that you've been talking about since.
And you bring up deed restriction. We as a board can recommend or suggest the grantor to add a deed restriction, but we can't mandate it.
And not typically, because, you know, it would depend on what's going on there, but you have to be careful that you're not taking private property rights away. So if they're getting some kind of benefit with the subdivision and they're willing to kind of trade the benefit for deed restricting into the future, something like that, it's a possibility. But you couldn't just say, we don't like that large parcel, you have to deed restrict it forever.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments or questions?
You know, Mr. Chairman, just briefly, I just want to note to the board that the board unanimously denied site plan approval, sketch plan approval, and Judge Power's decision was pretty clear and unambiguous. We were found to be arbitrary and capricious. Our justifications didn't meet the letter of the law. So although we understand the community is disappointed with this outcome, the decision was rendered and we failed to pass a pretty basic test. So I just want to repeat that for those who might be listening. It's unfortunate, but that's the standard that was applied, and we failed to meet that pretty basic judicial standard.
Thank you, Mr. Scributinus. Appreciate that.
I do want to comment on something from, since the sketch plan to now, Laura. The item 2 in our current resolution in front of us, do you find that satisfactory, at least from the DEC perspective, that we will have a stormwater analysis, and that'll be for the entire parcel?
Yeah, so I mean, that's actually directly taken from the CAC's recommendations. I set aside anything that had to do with historical and just went through the CAC's recommendations and made sure that I was covering everything else.
Yep.
And yeah, I do think that covers, you know, we do have to look at stormwater. We know it's an issue in this area and we have looked at it. The developer does have a pretty good drainage analysis now, and Kevin said it would be updated, but that should cover drainage because it was noted in the CAC's recommendation to us.
Yeah, because that was a concern that was still open for me at the time of the few weeks ago at the sketch plan approval. Thank you.
All right, and we'll talk more about it under discussion items. The first item up after this. I'll get through resolutions. Anything else?
So
Okay.
all that being said, go back to Mr. Oster's first point and what we also discussed. Is there any conditions that we would like to add here relative to further subdivisions?
Well, my thought is that we don't need to tonight. With something we can talk about because this is calling for the public hearing and negative declaration. If there's a concern about future subdivision of the primary lot in future, again, we have to take a look at it to see whether it's even possible based on what land is left and whether it would meet the R1 zoning district requirements or not.
You won't.
It won't. So, and we can talk to the applicant, during discussion portion also about any future plans or potential plans. But, again, this resolution is just carrying some open items and getting the ball rolling for the negative seeker and, listening to what the public has to say. So we're still in process here.
Okay, and just one last question. So, Mr. Briggs, who is the developer of the previous parcel? Who is the person that is the company that's the developer of the previous parcel?
Laura's going to have to help me there. I don't know the name.
I believe it's Rebecca Holmes.
Yeah, well, so Rebecca Holmes did the subdivision. She transferred the land development. The actual houses were built by, I think, Mahar Building, a couple of them. And then which is so. Listen, I
So,
Beacon Homes.
so, Mr. Briggs, in your determination that they're not serial subdivisions, is it Mrs. Holmes is considered the first developer, or
Yes.
is it the Mahar Group that's
No,
considered the first developer?
it's the party that submitted the subdivision application, Ms. Holmes.
Okay,
It's not the builder, it's the subdivider.
okay, understood.
Okay. All right, thank you, everybody. Any other questions? Before I ask Mr. Henry call the roll. Okay, Mr. Henry?
Mr. Laflamme,
Aye.
Mr. Screbutennis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. McPartland,
You have a problem with your sound there, Mr. McPartland?
Aye.
There we go.
Mr. Darpino,
Aye.
Mr. Oster,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. Resolution is approved, and we'll have a public hearing on Monday, May 10th at 7 o'clock. Okay, thank you. The next resolution is, and we'll talk more about this at the under discussion items. Next resolution is Resolution 2021-13, a resolution for plat plan approval of an ADD and major subdivision at 2538 River Road, which is Kelt's Farm. I think we were talking about possibly making a motion to table this resolution tonight, Mr. DiArpino.
Yeah, that is correct. When we met 2 weeks ago, we had a TDE letter that was 7 pages long. And when we spoke with Joel, we were going to have a response to that letter that would basically explain what the priority items were that needed to be addressed. And prior to that application, on Friday, we did receive an updated set of plans only, but they aren't correlated with everything that's in that in the engineer's letter. So I'm thinking that in order to work our way through that, generally we make a first pass using the TDE's comments, and if we get a level of comfort, we're able to move forward with the next step. I think we should be consistent with that because that's what we've done on prior applications, and I'd like to open it up to the discussion of the other board members to see if they concur with that.
First, we'll start with you have a motion on the floor to table the resolution. Do I have a second on that?
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mr. Oster. So moved by Mr. Screbutennis. Okay, we have a motion to table the resolution for tonight. All those in favor of tabling the resolution tonight signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, is anyone opposed? Okay, hearing none opposed, we're going to table this resolution 2021-13 regarding Kelt's Farm, and we'll discuss the open items, Mr. DiArpino, and things that what we need to do go forward and why under the discussion tonight, discussion portion of the meeting, okay? And we'll move on to the next resolution, which is Resolution 2021-14, a resolution for sketch plan approval of a 3-lot minor subdivision at 509 Fillmore Ave. And let's see, bear with me. There we go. So this resolution resolved that this Planning Board and Zoning Commission does hereby classify this sketch plan as a minor subdivision as defined by Chapter 189 of the Code of the Town of Niskayuna, and be it further resolved that the Planning Board and Zoning Commission does hereby grant sketch plan approval for the concept subdivision drawing entitled Concept Lot Line Modification and Combination Plan by ABD Engineers LPP dated Progress Print 3/25/2021 with the following conditions. 1. Sketch plan approval is a conceptual review of the proposed lot division for the purposes of classification and preliminary discussion as described in the Town of Niskayuna zoning sections 189-6 and 189-22. The location of proposed boundaries, infrastructure, utilities, and improvements are subject to change during the environmental review, engineering, public hearing, and subdivision review process. Do I have a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Motion for approval by Mr. Oster. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Mr. DiArpino. Any discussion? I think pretty straightforward. It seems reasonable. We'll talk about it some more under, let's see, yes, we do have it under discussion item, but this will at least move it forward. It seems like a good plan. Any other comments at this point in time? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Henry, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Laflamme,
Aye.
Mr. Scributennis,
Aye.
Mr. Khan,
Aye.
Mr. Darpino,
Aye.
Mr. McPartlin,
Aye.
Mr. Oster,
Aye.
Chairman Walsh.
Aye. Resolution's approved. Thank you, everyone. And we'll move on to discussion items. We got quite a bit to talk about tonight, so we'll try to keep it moving. First up being 1380 Van Antwerp Road, the minor subdivision that we just called for a public hearing on. And it's Mr. McPartlin. Is there anything specially you want to discuss? Or anybody on the board? Or anything from the applicant? Mr. Lisi's online also. I guess the only thing I'd like to mention is, there were some conditions, and we talked about these, Mr. Lisi, at the last meeting. He did have some engineering done in stormwater plan generated that was based on the old location of the garage. The new plan shows a new garage being built at a new location. So the board was requesting that analysis be reviewed to see if there's any changes as a result of the reconfiguration of the lot. I'm assuming that we're going to still take a look at that.
I think that was submitted last week to the town by ABD.
I didn't. Laura,
They revised it with they lowered the impervious soil, the driveway, and I thought Luigi prepared an amended report and sent it to the town. I got a copy of it.
yeah, I don't think it was included in the packet, right, Laura or Clark?
Yeah, I'm not saying that I don't ever miss emails, but I'm double checking for it right now.
Yeah,
I don't see it.
I think he submitted it 2 days after the last meeting.
No.
So he sent a revised subdivision plan showing that the water main was located within the Van Antwerp right-of-way 2 days after the meeting, but I don't see revised drainage plan.
I think the notations on the map were it increased the green space, and the soils were, there was more drainage soils available after we removed the garage and got rid of that driveway. So it created a better situation for the drainage study. But I can have them do it over again.
Well,
We just made the situation better than it was before the study.
yeah,
Which is great. He has a drainage analysis. I can pull it up on the screen, which is, I think, what Kevin's talking about being updated.
Yeah, so I think I tend to agree, Mr. Lisa. I think it was just, I think what we were looking for is that the changes were an improvement. I know that there's a summary of the old drainage analysis or past drainage analysis, and it said that, with the rain gardens, et cetera, that you were, less runoff was going to be from the site as a result of the measures taken. So we were just looking to have that updated, whether that be recalculations or whether it be, a statement, if it says based on less impervious surface, more green space, and a relocation, that the old one still, is still correct.
Yeah, I can have Luigi do that. That's not going to be a problem.
Yeah. So then I think that's one of the conditions, basically in the resolution. Stormwater analysis shall be reviewed by the engineering department. So you just want to have that finalized so they can do that review.
Yep, I'll make sure Luigi takes care of that.
All right. Any other open items that we need to discuss regarding this at this point in time?
So the biggest parcel is 30,000 square feet, and the R2 or R1 zoning requires 18,000 square feet. So it couldn't be further subdivided without asking for relief from the zoning board, which would be difficult.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Any other questions for the applicant? Does the applicant have any questions for us?
Nope.
All right. Okay. Well, I don't want to rush you along, but I guess if there's no other questions from the board, we'll see you at the next meeting for the public hearing. And please get that updated stormwater analysis to us, and we'll take a look at it. Okay.
Will do. Thank you.
Okay. All right, and you're on the agenda again later on, I believe. All right, so
Yes.
next we have 2538 River Road, Kelts Farm, the major subdivision. That's Mr. Diarpino and Mr. McPartland. And we have Mr. Bazoin, the developer, online with us also. So, Joel, did you want to talk about any concerns you had with the resolution that we had drafted for tonight?
Sure, if you let me here. I have questions on item 2, 6, 17, and 20. Number 2, Laura, I'd kind of like to put in here the agreement that the town was going to bypass the sewer flow while we were tying in that new 14-inch trunk line. Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, that's no problem. I do remember that.
Yeah, if you could put something to the effect like town bypass sewer flow while tying in new trunk line, that would probably stop it.
Yeah, because that's going to be an issue. I can put that in there.
I mean, when the town had the issue, let's call it the issue, they have the those inflatable balls and the pumps and everything like that. So
yeah, we talked about that. I do remember
and they
that.
have the okay. All right, number 6. This fee, I'll pay it, but I looked all through the code, and I can't find where like this fee is set by town code, and I don't know if it's arbitrary but it should be noted somewhere. And there's a section, I think it's section 89, that has building and zoning fees. This fee should be added to the town code.
Okay. I think it's written right here. Hold on, I should be able to tell you.
What is that document?
This is the checklist for accepting roads, and it has the resolutions where they are.
Yeah, but where do I find that? I mean, I Googled, I did all kinds. I searched the code.
Yeah, a lot of them are written into resolutions. It doesn't look like that one's written on here, so I'll find the resolution for you.
No, I would rather just see, well, how come we can't pull up resolutions when we pull up a code? Shouldn't the resolution, if it was adopted, be incorporated into the code?
Not typically. The only time that would happen is if the resolution was for a code amendment. A lot of times resolutions are standalone to the code. Paul Briggs can jump in there.
Yeah, but how does one find these resolutions?
Yeah, I mean, the town clerk keeps them all, but
I mean, what do I do? We call up the town clerk like the old days and ask for a carbon copy?
Well, so we've been talking about this in our department, and what Clark and I are going to try and do is set out a document for anybody who's subdividing both minor and major, and just flow chart the whole thing and just go through everything and put everything up front so that so that you're not trying to find these resolutions and everything. So you understand everything before you even submit your application, because I don't think it's easy to find resolutions, and we're trying to outline everything so everybody knows what's going on. But it is pretty difficult to know these things.
That would be fantastic, and that would definitely lower my my blood pressure,
Yeah, it's Clark's idea, but it's a great idea.
That's a fantastic idea.
And these fees have been paid by Harmon Grove and other subdivisions, right, Laura?
Yeah, that's yeah. I'll find the resolution for this one, and I'll send you the road acceptance doc, because you're going to need it for building the road anyway.
And one other thing, Joel, I hate to tell you that there was a mathematical error there also. So it's actually $3,200.
Oh,
See, that's even 16 acres. What is it, $400 an acre?
No, it's 16 times 200.
Oh yeah, sorry. I don't even know where the 1800 came from.
There you go. I like the 1600, but anyways. Number 17, it actually references Harmon Grove.
Yep, we had that as a correction if we went forward tonight, copy and paste error.
And 20 was kind of a shocker because, you know, all along it's my understanding that with an average density development, you know, I'm giving up 8 acres to the town and deeding it to the town, and it's a forever wild park that, you know, deeding parkland to the town is in lieu of paying the parkland fee. I mean, you don't need
Kevin,
a
you want me to
park
take this one?
and pay a parkland.
I think the way it's written is that we have the opportunity to either take parkland or fee in lieu of parkland or any combination of either in the ordinance. And I think, you know, and again, I'll defer to either legal or to Laura because they're, you know, more familiar with this than I am, is that when, you know, the average density development is a benefit to the, well, you could say it's a benefit to the town, but it's also a benefit to the applicant because you're able to use smaller lot size in the zoning district, you know, higher intensity of location of the homes, and therefore less infrastructure, less road, less piping, et cetera, because things are moved closer together. So it's a trade-off. You know, there's cost savings there to the developer also. So
that wasn't the intent from day one. I mean, the intent from day one is to have a green development, you know, where the town is getting a major bike path, it's getting a sewer upgrade, and it's getting 8 acres of park. I don't see how I could donate 50% of my land, you know, in a subdivision and pay a parkland fee. That was never my understanding. I would, if that was the case, I wouldn't have gone average density, you know. And if you look at the market now, you know, building townhomes, you know, I could build mega mansions. In retrospect now, I wish I didn't have the small lots. You know, I'd be building a lot bigger houses. You know, so there is no benefit to the developer. The benefit is to the town as a whole to get an 8-acre park and a multi-use path. This shocked me. I thought all along that there's no way in the world that I'd be paying a parkland fee. If you look at Overlook Park, you know, I didn't pay the parkland fee there because I gave the town a beautiful park. So this is even a nicer park, you know, within the town center and contiguous to Flatnick.
Well, I guess I could defer to the other board if there's any comments on this, and to again to the planning officer, to legal. Laura, do we have any authority to take what Mr. Bezoin is saying into consideration?
Yes, I put the full parkland fees in there because a planned unit development essentially takes the acreage that you would have if you developed it under a normal subdivision and breaks that away. So like if you would have had a 20,000 square foot lot, now you can have a 10,000 square foot lot, and that 10,000 becomes common area. Sometimes it's owned by a homeowners association and sometimes it's taken by the town. But you know, when you're doing an average density development, the point is to create green space that's shared in common. I think initially we had talked about a homeowners association, but the developer didn't want to do a homeowners association. And because of its proximity to the Windsor Drive connection and all of that, we ended up just saying, okay, we're not going to be mowing it. It's forest. Like, we'll just have the town take it over. But I think that is different than the intent of a parkland fee, which the intent of a parkland fee is like for Overlook Park. The reason that one didn't have parkland fees is because we looked at it and the developer said, I'm going to, you know, he wasn't required. He didn't do an average density development where he shrunk couldn't have, but where he shrunk the lots and made common green space, he chose to take a piece of it and then dedicate that to the town. So that was satisfactory for parkland. In this case, there may, and I didn't calculate this and I can, Like, what would be the difference? What would be, so if you divided the whole thing by what the lots could have been, like 18,000 square feet, and then subtracted all of those extra 10,000 square feet out of the common area, that may reduce, I don't know if I'm explaining that right, but he may have given us more open space than the average density development required, in which case you could probably look at those parkland fees and see if there's some negotiation in there. You can definitely negotiate it. But that's like the blanket, you know, we did the average density development, you set aside the common area, you know, for the benefit of those that live in the subdivision. Parkland is for the benefit of the town in the future. And we wouldn't typically take parkland on this property because there's Blatnick Park across the street. But yes, I do think that it's open for negotiation. I didn't do those full calculations. I just put in blanket, like there's 24 lots or whatever it is, times 3,000.
So
Yeah, but
Joe,
Laura-
maybe, go ahead, Joe.
Simple math is I'm giving 50% of my land to the town. 50%. I mean, look what this town would look like if every developer came in and said, okay, I'm going to give you 50% of my subdivision and not in lieu of a measly $3,000 per lot fee. So do you think that 8 acres in this unit is only worth $72,000 right there? I mean, I'm giving you a gold mine. That 8 acres is, you know, worth a lot more than $72,000. So it's kind of crazy that I have to pay, you know, give the town 8 acres of prime residential land and pay a parkland fee and pay $2,000 a lot sewer and water connection. And then I have to go in and spend $168,000 on a new 14-inch trunk line that benefits all of the Windsor development, the whole Windsor area.
So Laura, I have a question. I'm looking at the map, and I see the two pieces of land that are going to be conveyed to the town, dedicated to the town. Can we discuss what exactly is going to be the access arrangement there? Who will have access to, you know, what's going to be this condition of that land, and what's going to be the usability of it as parkland?
This here?
By town's residents?
Yeah, so this is one large one.
Right.
This is 6.31 acres.
6.3 acres, and then there's the
Yeah.
one above it on the other side of the
Well,
road.
yeah, so this doesn't count as parkland because this is the stormwater management area. And
Okay,
I mean, some of it is wetlands. I mean, I guess you could count the wetlands part, but the wetlands are undevelopable, so we don't typically count those. So I would say you're getting, yeah, like 6 acres. And like I said, I didn't do the full calculations of the PUD, and I think that we ended up with a good product. I know it was back and forth a lot, and I think that, you know, Joel did work with us on this, but I would like to acknowledge for the record that, like, we looked at one point at a plan that moved all of the homes like over to this side so that this was a chunk of open space, which would have been much more usable to the public. But that was difficult because, you know, the land couldn't come over here, and actually that had a road connection, which ended up not being feasible. But the parkland, you know, it's supposed to be for an average density development, like a little bit more contiguous than this. I think this is good. I'm not knocking our plans, but this isn't like a park. It probably is not going to have trails in it. What is the benefit of this and why it's so important that it's getting deed restricted is it, especially over in this corner, it's pretty intact forest land, which we don't have that much of. So it's definitely worth saving, but it's not, it would be really difficult to access, right? Because here's the trail. This is a wetland that you'd have to build a boardwalk through to get. And, you know, here, this is all backed up to private property. And again, over here, there's like another wetland. So it's a nice little chunk of really good habitat, which is the benefit of it, I think. And I didn't do the math. I just plugged in the 24.
Yeah, but I mean, that's what I'm trying to get at. So look, the simple question I have is that, can members of the Niskuna public safely use that land as parkland? Can they get off their bikes on the bike path and, you know, put it somewhere and walk into that area and, you know, put a blanket down the grass and have a picnic or do something else.
Well, some of it, but not all of it, because that one section of forest. Wait, sorry, I'm going to show my screen one more time.
Laura, I kind of beg to differ because take Overlook Park, for example. Genghis, I have posted signs on my property, okay? And people routinely, multiple people per day, park on my property, walk past the posted signs, all right, and walk down to the Leisha. And that's private property they're walking on now. The town doesn't own Overlook Park yet, okay? So the same thing could happen here. I mean, you could easily walk off that bike path and, you know, walk to the other end of the bike path, you know, through that woods. I mean, the woods, it's not a dense woods. It's a big timbered wood. And I'll pick up all the dead wood, you know.
Can I make a suggestion?
Easily walkable.
How about we do this? You know, just throw this out there. Laura or Clark, could the planning office like do an analysis of the amount of land and that's usable, deemed usable, and do the ratio? Like if we took so much of that land and so much dollars as parkland to see where that lands, make a recommendation to this board. We got a couple weeks before the next meeting, right? So that's one thing we could do, and then we could see whether. You know, again, it's a board decision because board gets to decide whether we want to take parkland or payment in lieu of parkland, or any combination of the above. So if we could do that analysis, we could have that data to see if we can get somewhere. And then I'd also would request that the planning office take a look at other average density development have occurred and whether or not we took parkland fee from them, and so they were consistent and we're treating all applicants the same.
Yep.
I don't think it's never happened. And I'm totally against paying a dime. I mean, we're a year and a half into this. If I knew this was going to be charged to me a year ago, okay, I would have said, forget the average density, you know, because I'm not real crazy about townhouses anyways, all right? I never was, all right? I would have said, forget the average density, I'm going R1, and I'm building mega mansions, you know? So this really floored me. I mean, this was supposed to be green subdivision, you know, right. It's a multi-use path.
Joe, I hear you. Joe, I'm gonna interrupt you. I hear you. Let's let the planning office do the analysis. Let's take a look at what we've done for the other average density developments, which I know there's at least a few out there. And so we're treating you the same. And let's find out what that is. And we'll have this discussion between now and the next meeting before we have the next resolution.
I'll guarantee parkland fee. I'll guarantee it.
Yeah, because I really don't know the answer to those. So let's get the answer.
And look, I definitely agree with the parity and fairness relative to other ADDs. But for this one that's in front of us, for me, it has to do strictly with what is truly usable by a Niskayuna resident. And whatever proportions fall, you know, gets calculated because of that in lieu of some amount of parkland fee, right? Then I think that's fair, right? And you know, we'd want to probably designate it that it's an area where, you know, people, you know, can be known to go and whether it's picnic or walk around or just meditate, whatever it is, right? Sticking with the true definition of what parkland is, right?
Yeah, because we were talking about putting like a little gazebo or like, maybe not gazebo, but like a little kiosk here that talked about what the Kelt farm used to be, and then make like this area like a lupin field, like in honor of, you know. So I definitely think like this area is going to be highly visible and really nice. And then the other area is good for habitat.
And I was going to grade the Windsor stub when we take it out and replant lupins there. And I mean, I'm going through a lot of expenses. So this really bothers me that the town is trying to charge an extra $72,000. I mean, for all the cooperation, you know, and all the things that I've done on it.
So maybe, Joel, the number ends up being something different, right? Once we work out what's truly usable as
okay,
parkland.
it's just zero. It's a slap in the face to charge me $72,000 when I'm giving you 8 acres of parkland. I'm building a gazebo. You know, it's just ridiculous.
So I was just going through the checklist, but I think it makes sense to look and make sure that we're detailing, the gazebo and the improvements to Windsor Drive stub and all of that stuff, and put all of that together and then do a recommendation to the planning board on where that lands. That makes perfect sense to me. I was literally just going through the road checklist and looking at everything that we have to do so that we don't forget it. So we're not blindsiding you at a pre-construction meeting.
Well, maybe since the lumber prices are so high, I won't build, and I'll come
Okay,
back to
Joel.
the planning. I'll go R1.
Okay,
I'm that mad.
Okay,
Right?
so I have a plan that I'll move forward with, but I think that I need, we can just get quick cost estimates for what those things would be, and then we can bring that to the planning board so it's clear that we're not just disregarding the parkland obligation that we have, through our code and through other.
I want to see zero, like all the other developers that have done that.
Joe, we hear you. Let the planning office do their analysis and let's have a discussion, okay? And we'll treat you the same as any other average density development that has also given land, parkland, etc. So let's take a look at that so we know where we stand. I think that's fair. And then we'll have the discussion. And we'll work through it prior to the next resolution, which we hopefully will be within 2 weeks once we get the town designated engineer to review the first cut of comments, okay?
All right.
I think that's reasonable. So we're not saying no, we're not saying yes, we're saying we need to do a little bit of an evaluation to see, if we can work with you and what's the right thing to do. So we'll take that time to do that.
First time I've seen this, and we've been going through this for a year and a half. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Does anybody else have any comments regarding that?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think it's a really good proposal. I think it's a really good, sound way to treat this. I'm in support of your proposal.
All right. So especially the part about the other average density developments. So we want to treat all applicants the same, Joel, always, So let's find out what we've done. Okay.
Yep.
And then we'll talk. All right. I understand that it's a big number. So any other comments regarding that subject? All right. Joe, did you have any other comments on any of the other conditions?
No, that's it.
All right. All right. And so and again, I don't want to speak for Mr. McPartland or DRPino, but the major open item is a response to the town designated engineer's comments, the 7-page document, so we can make sure that there's no significant items that will be in disagreement required anything serious. And then we'll come through the parkland and have the resolution back on the table at the May 10th meeting. Okay. I think that's all we can do at this time. And let's see, is there anything else any other open items that we need to come through? I mean, Joel, the other thing you could, I know you're kind of sense of urgency here. I don't know, if you can go probably talk to Laura Clark and possibly schedule the pre-construction meeting just to get it on the calendar, even though it'll be, sometime after May 10th, so you can go ahead. So at least you keep the ball rolling instead of waiting until May 10th to try to schedule that. So maybe you get into their calendar to help move things along. Okay.
I would appreciate that.
Okay. All right. And we'll Laura or Clark will get that out as soon as we can, and we'll take a look at what we've done in the past and see what we can come up with. All right. Any other comments at all? Project leads, anybody regarding this subject or regarding Kelt's Farm in general? Okay.
I just, Chairman Walsh, I just wanted to reiterate to Joel that the response to the TDE letter is really important, specifically for the last couple items regarding the SWIPs. I just don't want any of those open items to be a priority that may start reflecting changes in your plan. So if you could have those responses, it would just be good to know that there's no major hurdles here that would otherwise start redesigning or reconfiguring your current layout that you have.
That already happened, Dave. I mean, the TD had a concern about the groundwater level. So we raised the retention pond 6 inches and the road 6 inches. So we made the retention ponds bigger, actually. And we changed the culvert under Kelt Farm Road to a box culvert. So all those changes were incorporated in the drawing. So we're almost there with every single response.
And that's good. So what we need is just a simple, I think would be helpful, would be like a simple summary that says, you know, regarding the SWIPs, the changes on the 423 set of drawings have addressed the following item numbers, you know, a brief synopsis of what it is. The board members aren't maybe as well versed as some of us that can go through a 7-page letter and go to details on the drawings and look at 7 previous submittals to see that, you know, something or a detail did change. We need to get a little bit more concise breakdown of what's in the letter and what's been addressed.
Yeah, we'll have that this week.
Okay,
for sure.
perfect.
Okay. Anything further on Kelt's Farm? On 2538 River Road? Okay, so we got some open items, and we'll move it forward. Joel, we'll get there before the next meeting. Okay. All right, hang in there. All right, we'll move on. 509 Fillmore, the minor subdivision application. We took action tonight for sketch plan approval. Next up in that process is for the minor subdivision is to call for a public hearing, so we can keep this moving forward. Since it seems to be pretty straightforward, I'm going to recommend that we call for the negative deck seeker tonight and for the public hearing to have it at the next meeting. And it would also be nice if we had a project lead. If not tonight, we get one before the next meeting. How's that? Any thoughts or comments on that?
Mr. Chairman, I can, you know, if you want to add a name on it, you could put me on it.
All right, Mr. Oster, you're already down. Thank you. And Laura, the you know, looking at the agenda statement, you know, this, I think it's lot number 2. When they develop if lot number 2 becomes developed, that would be access from Fillmore, right? To access that lot. I know it runs all the way through to the other side to the paper street, but I assume that Fillmore will be the access to the home if there is one to be built in the future.
On lot 2, yes, because there's no road through Gasner. It would be considered a through lot in terms of having accessory structures in the rear yard, but there isn't really any way to fix that. That is what it is.
Now, is that one that we need to consider for any type of a restriction for future subdivision on that lot? Because I believe that's an R2. That's a good sized lot there. So that's something we need to consider. Because if the paper street were to become a road, there would be access to the other side of that lot.
Yeah, I mean, some of that might be dictated on where they put the house on that lot, but if they put the house like close to Fillmore and then left this open backyard.
Is a developer online tonight or anybody representing the developer? And if not, maybe we can reach out and ask what the plans for lot number 2 are. But yes, if they were to put the home somewhere right where the number 2 is located on that drawing you just had up, you know, being consistent with the homes on lot number 1, most likely they'd have a long driveway coming out to Fillmore, and that would be the end of it, would be my guess. Right.
Right.
I guess the question would be is if by having a further subdividing it, it would create a different level of review if they were to do 5 or 6 lots now instead of 3.
Yeah, I mean, you'd only be able to add the 1.
So it would be a different, if they had 4 lots, it wouldn't be a different level of review than it would be of 3. I think that was sort of the question that we were talking about before. By subdividing and then subdividing it again, there was a question of whether that prompted whether you bypassed a certain level of review. And I guess that would be my question here.
Minor subdivisions are typically 4 lots or less.
Yeah.
And major subdivisions are typically 5 lots or more. But again, like the crystal ball thing is difficult because the house on lot 1 is actually here. These are garages. And so like if this road ever got built, it's likely and somebody was, you know, trying to do something, you could probably fit 3 lots here, but the chances of this road getting built are pretty small.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like very expensive to build road, and you typically can't like, and that would be a little, quite a bit of road. Like even if you just came down High Street and over, I mean, you're still talking about, what is this, 240, 120? So you're talking about over 500 feet of road, which is difficult to diffuse the cost across 3 lots on 9,000 square feet of property. It becomes economically difficult.
Yeah, but I still think, Laura, we would want to be precise relative to what intent the planning board has in whatever resolution we put here, right? Whether or not,
Yeah, for sure.
if there is a paper road there, then it's not
Here.
impossible that a road could ever happen there, right?
It's not impossible, but and then I guess, like, you know, you guys know me already. I'm just, if a road does go through here and this house is up front, like, is there a detriment to the community to have a house back here facing this lot? I don't know, just a question.
Yeah, that's something we need to, think about, and we'll have to address it before we go to a final resolution if we get that far, which I assume we will. All right. Is everybody okay with calling for the public hearing for the next meeting and issuing a negative declaration on seeker for this basically a lot line adjustment subdivision?
Yes.
Anybody opposed? All right. One thing, Laura, like, the applicants, since they're not present tonight, maybe we can ask about intentions. At least I know that people change their mind, but let's at least talk to the applicant to see what he's thinking there and whether there's ever any future intention of potentially building or subdividing lot number 2, proposed lot number 2. So we can address that potentially in the upcoming resolution for approval. Okay.
We'll reach out. And then at the last meeting you had, it was Joel Bianchini that was there from ABD that presented this at the last meeting. And I think that you had asked him to reach out to his applicant and have him reach out to Paul Briggs on the town property. Just to, I mean, the subdivision can go through with or without it. We already discussed that, but.
I think where Mr. Briggs left it, he's waiting for the applicant to get a hold of him. Or is that?
This is Paul. We have had our discussions, and I recently received an offer from the applicant, which I have to present to the town. So that's moving forward. It's it's a very, it's one of those pieces of property that they put up for auction. It's really got no use, and people buy them. I don't know why they do, but they do, and then they abandon them. So it has not much value, but I'll be having that resolved with the town well before any of this happens.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Briggs. Any other questions or concerns? And what I heard was we'll have a resolution and calling for a public hearing and issuing a negative declaration at the next meeting. Okay. All right. All right. Next on the agenda is 2147 Eastern Parkway. That's a mixed-use development. That's a new project. Mr. Lisi is the applicant, and Mr. Diopino has agreed to be the project lead on this. Mr. Lisi, do you want to? I know we got the agenda statement. Do you want to talk about it?
I believe my engineer's here to talk about it.
Yes. Yeah. Hi, it's Allison Yulveen from MJ Engineering.
Hello.
So I'm going to share my screen here. So bear with me. So yes, this is on 2147 and 2143 Eastern Parkway. Currently, there's an existing building on the site, and we are proposing to remove the building and build a new 3-story building. The first story would have 2,500 square feet office space and 2 apartment units. And then the second and third stories would have 4 apartments each. So a total of 10 apartments. This is in the commercial neighborhood zone. So a multi-use building is allowed in that zone. The property size is 0.66 acres, which is correct size. The entrance options would be the same as is existing. And we are proposing 33 parking spaces By code, 34 spaces is required, but we're asking for a waiver for that one space. There's already existing utilities in the site, and since it's less than an acre, we will be doing stormwater calculations based on Niskina's code, but not to DEC standards. So right now, since it's at sketch submission, we are looking for your input on this so that we can take that and move forward with the project.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lisi, I know that I know what you're envisioning as far as architecturally for this project. Is it your office building down on Route 7 you've been working on? Is that a 3-story building?
It was a 3-story. It's now a 2-story. We reduced it because of COVID. Made a smaller building.
Are you thinking this would be similar in design to that building?
Yeah, similar design to that. Correct.
So that's next to is the Dollar Tree, I believe it is, right?
I'm sorry?
Is it the Dollar Tree that it's next to?
Yes, next door to Dollar Tree, correct.
So just for the board's information, if you're down that way, you can take a look at that piece of property that's being developed. Is it going to be under 35 feet, our code?
Yeah.
Yes. Yep. It'll be under 35 feet.
No area variances will be required for the proposal?
No, none.
So just a question. I know the code is 35 feet. It'll be under it, as Mr. Lee said, but that is going to be one of the taller buildings in that.
No,
that immediate adjacency, isn't it?
No, it's not. There are buildings that'll be taller. There's the New York State. There's a credit union brick building that'll be taller. You got the Senior Citizen Center, which will be taller. Albany Medical Center will be taller. So there's quite a few.
Yeah, I meant your immediate. You'll be the tallest of your immediate neighbors, right? I mean,
whatever immediate,
fact, right?
Well, whatever immediate is. What do you consider?
People adjacent to you.
Next door, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Albany Medical is also bigger than all the houses around that as well.
Okay. I mean, looking for my opinion, I mean, it appears to be a solid project. The parking and the setback lines, I guess parking, is there any violation of setbacks there, or we have to worry about, you know, I know it's a pre-existing lot and you're just following suit with what's there, but you look at the drawing, it shows that it was a 20-foot setback. It's okay to have parking within those setbacks? I just don't know. I have to look it up. So it's a question.
I thought it was allowed.
Yeah, those are what's shown there is the building setbacks, not the parking setbacks. So that's allowed.
I mean, that's the parking that's there already. It's kind of existing in that format already, pretty much, right?
Correct.
Yep.
So the process on this would be a special use permit because of the mixed use, and that would be call for a town board to take action on this application. And you can tell me if I'm wrong, Laura, at any point in time here. So we're going to need to take a preliminary look at it, send it on to all the agencies that we typically do, including the Conservation Advisory Council, of course. And once we get some initial feedback regarding this project, and then we would be calling for a public hearing and a resolution to be able to recommend this to the town board. And then we'll move it on to the town board, which will also have a public hearing and a resolution and send it back to us, as you know, Mr. Lisi, and the applicant's engineer, of course. And then once that comes back to us, we can, any final issues or designs that will need to come through will take place at that point in time. So it's a little bit of a process here we got ahead of us to get through this one.
And Chairman Walsh and, Mr. Jarpino, I going back to my comments about height, I'd really like the Architectural Review Board to be as involved as they can, as soon as they can. Right, because this section of the neighborhood, right, there are shorter buildings there, right, and so this one is going to stand out.
Yep. So, Mr. Lisi, if you have like a sketch or something, or something that you have in mind of where you're going with this.
I can do that, Kevin. Yeah, but I just want to make sure it's clear. The code requires a 35-foot height requirements, and we're at the 35 foot, so it's zoned for 35-foot height. So I'm not asking for anything beyond the 35 feet.
I understand.
Okay. All right.
Let's have, we need to have a vision though, because, we're going to get public comment. We're going to have town board's going to have a public hearing. So it's always nice to have something of what, obviously we got a footprint drawing, but I'd like to see an elevation of what you're contemplating for the area and how that would fit with the neighborhood, of course.
Not a problem with that. That's fine.
Okay.
Yep.
Not a problem.
Do you have an idea what the expected uses are going to be?
No.
It basically is medical or non-medical office, right? Zone for either
It'll be
one.
it's zone medical or professional office. Yeah.
Mhm.
Right. There'll be one of those.
So one thing I'm going to ask you to demonstrate, Lou, is to make sure that there's going to be suitable parking for daytime usage for the 2,500 square foot office space and the obviously the 12 tenants who are going to come out. Figuring you have to let us know what the distribution of one bedroom, 2 bedrooms, and how many anticipated drivers. Just want to make sure all those uses would be compatible from a parking perspective.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I understand that.
And I believe it's already been one cut of that. We're pretty good shape, is my understanding from the applicant's engineer, and also from, I think, the planning office was taking a look at it. So,
and I believe, Laura, I think the plan calls for that one set of parking is covered, because I think with apartments, one has to be a covered space. Right, Laura?
For each unit, it's 2 parking spaces, 1 covered and 1 uncovered. And then I was just looking at the code quickly. So new parking spaces have to be 10 feet from the property line, but the existing parking is pre-existing non-conforming. So I think that as long as he's not building any new parking within the 10-foot setback, he's good.
And we've been in discussion with the Caldwell Baker property next door. They've also allowed me, if we needed more space, they would think about sharing space with us if they need be. I don't find like their parking space, which is open space. So,
all right.
Who's the adjacent neighbor, Lou?
Caldwell Baker Prime Properties.
And is that a 2-story or a 1-story?
That's a 1-story, 12,000 square feet.
Okay. Yeah. I know that the next one is M&T, and that's pretty tall.
That's pretty tall. Correct. Yeah. Right.
Thanks.
All right. Any thoughts from the board?
Yeah, I think initially I like the idea of the mixed use building here. And, one thing to think about is that, Brookdale is 3 stories high, and that has different roof lines that's been treated differently. So if it's a 3-story building, there's a big difference between looking at something that's articulated like that as opposed to a flat building with a flat roof on it. So that's something that, Mr. Lisi can work with MJ Engineering on as he gets into the development of that. One of the other things I want to point out is that side of the road does not have sidewalks on it. So I think it's an opportunity to at least get sidewalks on your section of the property. And quite frankly, that 1-story building is very limited for what you can have for use. And it seems like it's a bit outdated. It probably could get a few different types of tenants, but the idea of having some mixed use in that area would help at least develop that section of town a little bit more. And I did have some questions, which I think Laura just did touch base on, with covered parking spaces and how that would be delineated, assuming probably at the rear of the property, and what that may look like. And then the other question is that you've got that odd little parcel in the back that's the green space.
Yes.
And okay, and that was part of the original plot line, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
That was part of it.
Yeah,
Right now, it's being used by the Boy. Right now, we let the Boy Scouts use. There's a shed there that the Boy Scouts put all their stuff in and stuff. So,
and to Mr. Diapino's point, I see that there's from the sketch, there's sidewalks in front, but sidewalks don't go all the way to the property line. So I think something we usually ask for is that the sidewalks go to the property line also.
yeah, we can do. Yeah, that's fine. We can do that.
Yeah, on either side,
Either side, that's fine.
Okay. It's just a preliminary look. Of course, we'll send it on to all the other agencies and get some feedback before we move forward. This is the first time we've seen it tonight.
Sure, and also as far as the covered parking is on the right side. We have notated that also on the plan. So yeah, right there, the right side, those are all 10, those 10 spaces have a cover to it for the residents.
Okay. Okay. And we'll just have to think about it.
Yeah, I think I'd rather move that to the rear instead of to the side.
Okay,
That's because the tenants would be entering from the rear of the building, not the side of the building.
sure.
And also in our multifamily code, we like to see a little bit of the open space. There's like a certain square footage per apartment unit set aside for like tenants. So like this might be a good place to designate like picnic tables or something, or maybe somewhere in here.
The apartments on here, they're all going to be corner apartments. So there'll be 4 apartments per floor, and the second and third, each one will be a corner unit. So there'll be a lot of light and windows on each unit. So they'll be pretty large apartments.
Yeah, what's nice about this application with the apartments is obviously the location, Upper Union Street, the walkability aspect, and all the services and amenities that are available to any residents of this apartment in the neighborhood. So that's a nice thing.
And we've had some physicians from Albany Med. They're trying to get more space around the medical center, but the building is too old for them to look at. So there are some physicians that want to come to the area that kind of space doesn't exist around the AMC building.
Yep. Great. All right. I don't want to rush everybody along. Is there any questions for the applicant?
Just some question. So Lou, you also own the property right next door, right?
What, next door to what? To this parcel?
Yeah.
No, I don't.
No. Hang on, I'm just looking here on the street map. All right, no, that's fine. It's okay. You guys go ahead. I'll just have to get my bearings on the map again.
I don't own any other parcels on that street. Or the street
Okay.
behind this.
Yeah, I just
Oh,
like to make.
I thought the parcel
sorry.
on Eastern and Palmer. Sorry, at the corner of Eastern and Palmer. That's not yours.
That's owned by someone else.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Khan?
No, that's all.
Mr. Scrappy-Tennis?
Yeah, just one point. I want to, Lou, I want to make sure that, at least my perspective, I'd like to see an active doorway off of Eastern. I want to make sure that the only primary access shouldn't be off the back.
Okay.
We have an activated door on Eastern that's live, that will allow pedestrian access, and for parkers who are off the side.
That's
I just
fine.
want some forward facing on Eastern. Thank you.
Yeah, we can do that. That's fine. That'll work.
Okay. All right, so we'll just move it along and start getting some feedback on the application. I think that's the next step. And before, we're not obviously ready to call for a public hearing tonight. We'll get some Conservation Advisory Council input and any other agencies. And once we get our initial input, then we'll be looking at calling for the public hearing.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, everyone. Appreciate everybody's patience tonight. Got a big agenda. Okay, let's see. Balltown Road, 1330 Balltown Road, the CVS interior modifications. Mr. Khan volunteered for project lead, and let's see, is that Mr. Wheeler tonight online?
The
Hello.
applicant,
Hey, hello.
This is for signs for Maurice's in Mansion Square.
Balltown Road was next on the agenda, CVS. Who has that?
Oh, no.
I'm sorry.
Not me.
I called you for the wrong one. I'm sorry.
It doesn't seem like the applicant's on.
We don't have anybody from CVS tonight online? Right.
yeah, the applicant on that is Kelly Lay. I think he sent me. Let me just make sure she's not emailing.
I'm sorry,
thought she
Mr.
was
Wheeler. All right. If we don't have any, we can just summarize, what's going on here.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess there's no one here, right?
Yeah. So the bottom line is that they're looking at doing some interior modifications for a retail health center. The we all received a sketch of the floor plan of what they're thinking about over there. It's a permitted use with a special use permit also. So this would be another application that we would need to forward on to our advisory committees, get some initial feedback, and then make a recommendation to the town board for the issue of special use permit also. So we'll need a public hearing and a resolution, see what the town board says, and then continue on the process.
And the town board's going to hold a public hearing too, right?
Yes. Yep. Now, the one thing I asked the planning office, and they've already taken a quick look at, is splitting the uses between walk-in medical and retail, and it appears that we're in pretty good shape with parking over there. So that's that's usually one of the bigger concerns, right?
Right.
So it seems to be pretty straightforward.
One of the things I would have liked to see, and I'm sorry I didn't email it earlier, is so they're showing a picture of what they're currently proposing. At least it was included in the package. Do they have a picture of the existing floor plan as it is today? It'd be good to take a look at that just to see what all the different changes are.
Yeah, they do. They actually have like a 60-page plan set and Clerk, and I just pulled a couple of pages to keep your packet smaller. But I can send you guys like a link to it maybe or something so you can see the whole thing.
Yeah, a link would be good just to go through it. I mean, I think overall the main issues here are just going to be, what comes along with just I'm not sure if I'm completely convinced that there's not going to be a major uptick in usage, right? I read in the EAF that they answered that question, that there was not going to be an impact, but I'm not sure. I don't know what the rest of the board thinks, right? I would expect that there would be an increased usage.
Yeah, I would think so, because I don't have any gauge to state how well the store is doing over there, whether it's a busy CVS or not so busy. Anytime I go over it, it appears to be plenty of available parking. It could be just me, but it seems like it would work there. But yes, it would probably create more traffic for appointments. But again, it's I think it would be three rooms is what they're talking about. 3 examination rooms or waiting area, right?
Yep. Yeah. I mean, it is a pretty right. There's 3 rooms, 1 exam room, a waiting area, right? And I mean, the waiting area is depicted there with, already 8 chairs, right? So just in terms of the depictions, right? You're already dealing with 8 plus another 3, right? Another, at least 11 people in there.
Yeah.
Dedicated to just this clinic operation.
So, Mr. Khan, to your point, we could ask, the applicant as an open item to at least make some kind of statement, I guess would be a minimum, regarding the change in traffic as a result of the change in use, from retail to
the additional
medical.
use, right?
The additional use, because you decreased the retail, you've increased, obviously the new use. So,
yeah, and the thing I'm actually looking for with the current configuration is I think their number of aisles in the retail space is probably going to end up being the same, right? It's not like they're going to cut down on or are they, Laura or Clark? Are they going
well, here's the existing. Oops, darn it. Oh, sorry. Muted. Oh, here's the existing. Sorry about that, guys. I have too many screens up. That's what I was scrolling around to. Sorry, Jengus, I was talking way to myself. And I think this is the whole. So it's just a wall, really, and all the aisles are here. You can see the way they've set their aisles sort of up here on this one. I don't know why my computer just won't zoom.
Okay, I can see it from here. So it looks like the aisle count. This is what they're proposing, right?
Yeah, the aisle count has to change.
They don't show the aisles in the previous one, but I guess that's one question, right? Is there going to be any reduction in? There will be a reduction in the square footage for sure, right? That's been calculated. but is there a reduction actually in their aisle count? Right? I mean, or the more blunt question is, are they going to be selling less stuff? Right? Having less stuff for sale.
Although, like, so here's the line B. Yeah, here's the line B.
Yeah.
And then if you go to that plan, that's where it comes out to.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I can't actually even see that B depicted on the.
Yeah, I can send these to you guys. We just didn't want to include the whole thing, and we can have
Yeah,
the
no, I mean, and a link
clarify
to it
that.
would be fine, but just something where we can. I mean, you know what the thing is that we want to check, because it seems like what they might have done too is they might have cut into some of their storage space.
I think they definitely have cut into that receiving storage area a little bit.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
So
think
is
that
this-
one of the retail trends is to not stock, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of extra boxes of things.
Right.
A lot of retail stores just simply aren't backlogging things like they used to. They're depending on, weekly or bi-weekly deliveries of materials, as
Right.
opposed to having, 1,000 paper towel rolls sitting in the back room.
Right, and that would be a good thing actually for some. I'm seeing it here. I think they clearly cut into that storage area.
Yeah, I think so too. Like,
yeah,
the old line
which is
appears to
good.
be somewhere in here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
This might,
so
this
yeah,
might
so the main.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, Mr. Rosser.
No, and this might just be sort of beyond the pale of this application, what this board is looking at. Is this essentially going to be a co-located medical office within CVS? That's a medical office, not a CVS clinic.
They say that they only have like a nurse practitioner or a physician's assistant, and so they can only treat
Right. No.
It would be really good for getting your flu shot, because you can go into a room and sit and not have your flu shot like in the aisle of the CVS.
No, but Laura, I think this is more than the flu shot. I think this will be. I mean, this. I think clinic is the right word. There is going to be treatment beyond just what CVS currently offers today.
But clinic involves a health department approval of it being an Article 28 facility. Is this just basically a doctor's office? I mean, who's paying the salary of the nurse practitioner and the PA? Is it their own? Are they just renting space from? Because I know across the state, you go to places downstate and there's like a Walgreens, and then they kind of have a separate area within that place where you have a doctor or a nurse practitioner that's seeing patients. So is this basically a separate business within that's renting space technically from CVS?
No, I mean, according to their letter, it is CVS Health, right? Described as CVS Health Corporation and its subsidiaries, collectively known as CVS Health.
Yeah, I just didn't know that was actually legally authorized unless it was a sort of somebody who's technically renting space who they're essentially promoting that service with their business.
Yeah, I mean, as far as I'm reading here, this is a CVS operation.
Well, again, we can get some clarification from the applicant, regarding that, and whether there's any permitting that has to take place, as Mr. Osser has talked about.
I mean, the letter is giving Ms. Lay. I'm assuming it's giving Kelly Lay a permission to be the the representative of CVS Health for this one. Right. So CVS Health is definitely the applicant. She's Kelly Lay is doing it on behalf of.
Yeah, I mean, CVS, just like I know in New York, retail clinics are very hard to operate. There can be if they're renting space from that CVS, because that happens a lot in the state, but it's not like in Florida where you actually CVS hires a nurse practitioner to deliver services to the public.
So right now, Mo, without getting clarification, this reads like it's the latter. It reads like CVS is hiring a nurse practitioner.
That's why I just didn't know whether that was even a legal construct.
Yeah.
And I have an issue also. Since they got the drive-through pharmacy lane, they've been taking deliveries out front. If you happen to be at CVS when one of the big tractor trailers is there, that totally messes up parking. It also interferes with ingress and egress. And that needs to be resolved in addition to whatever additional traffic is going to accrue from this additional use.
Okay, that's a good comment, Ms. Gold. We also received one comment from a resident regarding making sure that the garbage area is kept tidy and things are within the enclosure over there. And I think the same person received a comment that we also, if there's any medical waste, make sure we understand how that's going to be addressed for this application to move forward.
I think both during the construction phase and the permanent medical waste.
Yeah, so it's a couple open.
You know, and coming back to the increased usage, right? So I think everyone knows the Balltown Road exit for people going south on Balltown. It's always tricky. And so with increased usage, which there's got to be, right? I mean, we can, right? Then do we want to actually, you know, control the flow of traffic a little bit better and have people who would ultimately want to end up on Balltown going southbound to actually have to go by way of Van Antwerp?
Yeah, it's a good comment, and that's a typical way that I would go if I was going to go northbound or southbound myself. But let's ask the applicant, you know, regarding the traffic. You know, they have that traffic handbook where they look at uses and what the trip generations are. And we can get some at least some rough numbers from the applicant and how this would impact those trip generation numbers. Okay.
But procedurally, right? It's we'll need to call for a public hearing.
Yeah, I don't know if we need to do that tonight, Laura. I think we need to get some more information and have Conservation Advisory Council, right? Take a look at this first.
Yeah.
CIC actually did look at it once because they almost started their application and it was in time to put it on the CIC meeting, but then they paused it. So CIC has looked at it once, and one of their questions, which is also a question for the applicant, was like, would it have a separate entrance? And I did follow up with the applicant on that, and they aren't proposing a separate entrance because they were interested in the fact that that you're not separating like the two streams of people, like the people who are going to shop for conditioner and then the people who are like going to the medical place. On the other hand, like the pharmacy is all the way at the back. So like, I feel like if you go into a CVS, you kind of know that there's going to be a mixture of all kinds of health conditions.
Well, no. Yeah, I mean, this is a little, I don't want to say the word revolutionary, but since I said it, I did. It is going to be a bit different from what we're accustomed to.
I mean,
Right?
I think
I'd
these
also like to know
exist
how
in
many
other
of these CVSs
locations.
there are like this.
Oh.
Sorry,
I think these exist in other locations, but again, that's why I'm asking the question about the legal construct, because is this essentially a medical office within another business?
Yeah, we'll ask them that. They definitely do exist. But we had initially said, is this COVID related? Or is this like a brand, you know, like something that you're doing across the nation? And they said it's something they're doing across the nation, and they had targeted the CVS for it. You know, even like prior to COVID, it just takes a while for the wheels of a big corporation like that to get to go.
But there are rules in New York which limit the ability of a corporate entity like CVS to establish a clinic in their store. That's why I'm just asking the question, and it just, you know, about kind of what the construct is, because it had been my understanding, and maybe I've missed it, that limits the ability of a company. I mean, they can do rental space. They can basically say, I'm going to allow whomever to rent space technically within our store, and we'll co-brand it, but not necessarily have it be
After 42 is fine.
You're dead. Yeah. Not actually have CVS offering the service to the public as a CVS employed nurse practitioner, like a CVS employed pharmacist. Now,
Yeah,
maybe
I
their
think
partnership with
we should make
Aetna
that
makes it a
question
little
clear.
different, that maybe they can, through their Aetna, through that, they can do something there. But I'm just curious about what the construct is, because then you start getting a situation of, well, is it a clinic, and do they need to get Article 28 approval and from the state?
I would think that, yeah, I mean, let's ask them, but I think this is a
Yeah.
CVS.
Well,
report
we'll ask
that-
them, and we'll get some answers. I think we generate quite a list of questions here. And the other thing, Laura, as you always do, since the applicant isn't present tonight, once the video here gets uploaded, you can just ask them to fast forward to the discussion, and they can hear what, the comments that Mr. Oster and Mr. Khan have had, and that'll make it easier for them to be able to respond to our questions, okay?
Yeah.
But we won't take any action tonight on this. It'll get forwarded on to the Conservation Advisory Council. Like I said, we generated a pretty good list of questions, and we'll start working down through them.
Yep, Laura. And if you can send a link for the full package, we can take a look at it. But I mean, at the end of the day, it's I think it's going to be a useful service to the community. We just have to make sure that an already congested area of Balltown Road, that's going to end up getting more congested with this, that, we might need to put in some traffic.
Yeah, and that's correct, Mr. Khan. Thank you. And the other thing is, obviously, it's yeah, I mean, and it's something that's permitted, right? It's allowed, through the special use permit. So we'll give them the opportunity, which the right they have, and we'll take it through to closure. All right. Anything else?
Okay.
We got our work cut out on this one. So we'll get some information, Laura. We appreciate it. Passing our concerns on to the applicant. All right, and I appreciate everybody's time tonight. I know it's a long meeting. Lots of stuff. So that brings us to 408 Balltown Road. Sorry, Mr. Wheeler. And that's Maurice's site plan application for signage. Mr. Wheeler, we did receive the package. But if you could, it would be good if you could summarize for us what's going on there.
Yep. Basically, there's four signs in total that we're looking for Maurice's. There's two sets of channel letters, one on the front of the building, one on the side of the building. I believe those are allowed in permitting. Then there's also a small, I guess we call it a monument sign in the sidewalk for to draw the attention of pedestrians. And then there's also a small little blade sign that hangs above the space, again, to capture pedestrians and perhaps vehicle traffic in the parking lot as well, so they can find Maurice's. So the two signs we're asking for tonight, the blade sign and the small monument sign in the sidewalk, they're more of a directional aid than anything. They're not illuminated. The channel letters are illuminated, but these little signs we're asking for are not.
Okay. And now, and I talked to Laura before the meeting. The plan wasn't clear to me, well, because there's a lot of information tonight. Was there any waivers that we had to grant for the facade signs, or are they compliant?
They're compliant.
So the only concerns we have are with the two additional signs, the pylon sign, or I guess we call it, and the blade sign, right? Is that correct?
Yes.
All right. All right. We don't have a project lead on this, but I'll give you my first impressions from looking it over, as always. To me, I think there's other malls in the area, outside shopping centers, whatever you want to call them, in the area where I've seen the blade sign. So that one didn't bother me personally. It's a board decision. Didn't bother me so much because, based on the location of Maurice's and looking down the sidewalk, it kind of helps. The pylon sign, or the one on the sidewalk, didn't excite me so much.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about precedent. And then, where do you stop? We end up having one of these in front of every store, and it'd be hard to say no if that was approved. So I had a bit of a problem with that one personally, but that's just my opinion.
I agree with you, Chairman Walsh. I'm right there with you, and the support for the blade sign, the pylon sign, is a thumbs down for me.
Any other thoughts?
So, is there any way to avoid doing the pylon sign?
Well, they need our permission to do it, right? So,
yeah, no,
one way to avoid is to say no.
It's.
If you don't let me do it, I can't do it. So.
Yeah, but again, just on a serious note, what was the purpose of the pylon sign again? It was just direction.
Maurice's wanted that just to attract, I guess, pedestrian traffic. When you're on the sidewalk, you see it. Just something else to get people around that corner to see that store.
Okay, but hopefully the blade sign will do some of that. I know it's around the corner, but
yeah, that was my thought also. Again, I was more concerned about I guess you call it a monument sign, pylon sign, about, being, on the sidewalk, taking up space, snow removal, and then, again, having multiple, having the opportunity where everybody says, hey, he's got one, let's, we need one too,
Right.
and then how do you say no? So that was my concern,
Yeah, and just to be clear on that last point, Chairman Walsh, I don't think there are any other pylon signs
No.
and in Mohawk.
But, I also respect it's a tough location, down on the corner, and that's why, I'm, I guess lenient or whatever word you want to use for the blade sign, so because I understand that. How about the rest of the board? Any thoughts?
I agree with both of you. I think the blade sign is a nice addition. The pylon signs really aren't necessary. This is not a heavily pedestrian traffic area. If people are going to those banks of shops, they go and park there. I know hardly anyone that parks in one place in the commons and then tries to walk everywhere else to get to it. So the sidewalks aren't deep enough also because of the overhangs. So you're not getting a lot of people that are just walking to all the different buildings. Plus, with snow removal on that corner, I think you'll lose the pylon very quickly.
Yep. And Mr. Henry, you stated that the facade signs that are proposed are compliant.
Yes, they're compliant, and they're both pretty good sized signs. So there's quite a bit of visibility for those two as well.
Any other thoughts from anybody on the board or comments? So, Mr. Wheeler, I think generally that's where we stand. Again, we're not so excited about the monument or pylon sign. I don't know if you need to take that back to Maurice's or not. But if the board's okay, we could go ahead with a resolution, approving the blade sign and the facade signs, if the pylon sign is eliminated, and I guess a question for Laura. Sorry, I'm stumbling here. Laura, if we does the applicant have the opportunity to go to the ZBA for that pylon or monument sign?
Yes, he would. He can appeal your decision to the zoning board. So we could prepare a resolution with what the planning board's comfortable with for the next meeting, and then if the applicant really wants to continue to pursue, they do have other options, but by no means Yep.
Yeah. So, Mr. Witt. I'm sorry, Mr. Will. Go ahead.
I agree with that. That seems like a good path.
All right. Then you get your signs, you get started, and if we don't like the pylon sign, we will make a recommendation if you decide to go forward with that. You probably can tell that the recommendation would not be positive, would be my guess. So you can feed that back to the applicant.
Yeah, it's worth telling the applicant though, Mr. Wheeler, that I don't think that pylon sign is going to buy them much at that location.
I agree. Yeah.
Okay.
So if the board's okay with it, unless somebody disagrees, we'll have a resolution drafted for approval of basically all but the pylon or monument sign, whatever you want to call it. Okay.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. I appreciate your patience, Mr. Miller, and everybody else. Thank you. All right.
Kevin.
Yes.
Kevin, I emailed Kelly Lay from CVS while we were having our discussion item, and she did send an applicant who just joined us, Josh Roth. Although it would be my suggestion that you finish the other agenda items and go back.
Yeah.
Yes, if Mr.
I'd
like to keep moving forward. Yeah, everybody's nodding. Yeah, we'll keep moving. Hang in there. All right. So next up, and we'll get back to that, is Knott Street. Let's see, make sure I got the right one. Yep. Knott Street site plan approval tenant change for the barber shop. And who do we have online for that? Anybody tonight? Yeah, you're on mute there.
How's that, better?
Yeah, much better. And thanks for your patience tonight.
Yeah, no problem. Michelle Malavey.
All right, and we received the application in our packet. We're able to look at it, and this is the former gift shop right down on the next to the co-op, or next to the liquor store, right?
Yes. Yes.
You want to tell us anything about the business? Are you currently have a similar business and looking to relocate? Or is this...
I currently am a barber at Mario's around the corner on Balltown Road. And I've been there about 6 years. I've been a barber for about 30. And I just, it was a great opportunity, and I thought I'd open my own.
Okay.
Okay.
I guess I'll kick it off. I took a look. It seems reasonable. We've had a lot of discussion regarding this whole mall or strip mall complex. Because of the proposed or the approved broken-in restaurant that's going in. So we knew that there's parking issues down there, but we also stated in the previous meetings that we recognized that, but we felt that we couldn't restrict, a storefront from being used, especially based on, the other previous approvals. And there was a gift shop there before, so.
Right.
So we know it's tough for parking. But the one thing that did trigger a little bit in my mind concern was that, you said one employee yourself, but you show 4 chairs. So my assumption is that you'd be looking to rent out, the 3 additional chairs sooner or later. So there would really be 4 employees is what we're designing for in the future.
That's what I would like. However, it takes, quite a long time to build up a clientele. So that is probably in the very near future, but that's what I would like to do. Yes.
Yeah. So again, we know it's tough down there. Is that if you had 4 employees, I understand that the customer turnaround times are pretty quick, but your 4 employees, including yourself, the parking, obviously if you were to park in front, it'd make it difficult for somebody to stop into any of the establishments there and do a quick turnaround. So one of the things that we'd have to consider, or you would have to consider, is where would the employee parking be? Is there a spot out back or somewhere else?
Well, I believe there is a spot, I think, out back, for, I don't know how many cars. I haven't asked. But prior to Mario's, I worked at Niskuna Barbershop for 4 years. And we parked across the street, that little parking area across the street. And there were 3 of us then.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know who's parking over there at the moment, but that's where we used to park.
Right. And if I'm correct, that's the parking area that once not street improvements go through, that will probably be going away. Is my understanding?
I don't know. I didn't know anything about
so that's the thing is, obviously consuming all day long or during your business hours, the parking, this could be difficult down there. So it's a concern,
So I just wanted to make sure Ms. Malve knows what's actually happening on that street and the time frame. When would you want it to actually open that business?
As soon as I could. But again, it'll be me alone for probably quite a while until I, get known in the area.
Yeah.
Not that I'm not known, but I'm not known in that location.
Right. So, I mean, there is an extensive development that, I don't know if Laura, you'd made so I'll be aware of the development that's going to happen on that street.
Yeah, I can share the plans to her. I just wanted to note that, and maybe this is something that she knows from her lease. There are 5 designated parking spaces in the rear. I do think that there's some maybe residential in the second story, maybe, but as part of the lease, it may be worthwhile to see if if you lease this, if you're allowed, how many spaces you're allowed to park in the back. It would be helpful to know.
Yes, I can do that.
Yeah, good comment, Laura.
Yeah,
that would be very helpful.
Yeah. I bet you it comes with something. And my guess is, that you would have a right to park a couple cars back here, and then your patrons would be out here, and it would, be pretty similar to the gift store.
Has it gone that far where you've signed a lease?
No, we were actually waiting for your approval.
Okay. That's a good question. That clarify, what the expectations are for you and for the owner, where you're going to park.
Okay.
Questions from the board?
And I think you really need to think about it in terms of if you ever were able to fill 2 or 3 more people working with you, right? They would need parking spaces, and I think it's important to consider that. Wasn't there, Laura? Wasn't there a barbershop on that strip?
I think there were 2, actually. There were 2.
Niskuna Barber. I worked there for 4 years. It was right next door to Lang's Pharmacy.
Yeah.
And there
So
were 3 of us at the time that I worked there. There were 3 employees there.
Yeah, because the new restaurant took over 2 barber shops. There was one that
Right.
faced Knott Street, and there was one that faced
David Thorne.
Clifton Park. Yeah, sort of
Right.
Clifton Park Crescent.
But those
the other one.
barbershops had closed down for a while, right? I guess
No,
that's
they're
the
gone, right? Because
Different-
the restaurant got approved there. That's
No,
the
no, no. I know, but
opening.
even prior to the restaurant coming, they weren't. I don't think they were operational as a
Yeah, they were
barbershop.
operational until COVID.
Okay, okay,
I know both of those owners. That's the only reason why I know
okay.
that.
So that's what it was. Okay.
And the
So I
one
think it's-
salon just chose not to open, and the barber shop, she got cancer, so she didn't reopen.
Yeah. I think it's fair to say that, it's a permitted use, an appropriate use, there's space available. There's going to be a major construction project going along Knott Street, I assume starting later this, maybe summer, somewhere in there. That could impact your business and all the businesses there, because there's been some concerns from the business owners. And parking is the biggest concern, as always, down there. Nothing new.
Right.
All right, so we'll, is there anything else you'd like to add, or any questions from the board for the applicant?
I just had a little question about signage. I think the application said a sign of the same size as currently, but I believe there's that awning with the silk screened name. So was that the intent for future signage?
Well, I was going to ask you, there is, I don't know, bolts or whatever on the actual building. I assumed that was for a sign. I don't know why the Right Touch didn't put a sign up there, but there's 2 little bolts right on the top of that arrow for a sign. I was going to ask you what size sign I could put up there, or what were the regulations for the signs?
Yeah, well, yeah, was the awning going to come down and the signage on the awning? Is that the plan?
Yeah, I really don't care for the awning, to be honest, but I would rather a sign than the awning. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Well, that's up, basically that's up to you to, say what you want and how you plan on accomplishing that. And then we'll review it against the code to see whether it's compliant or not and how it looks aesthetically. And then we can, take it from there. But you make the first cut of what you want, and along with your, the owner, obviously, if you have to have agreement from the owner of the building.
Right.
And let us know so we can evaluate it against the code. Okay.
Okay.
You're allowed 1 square foot for each linear foot. And so from your plot plan, it looks like it's about 10 feet across. I think that's about right. Seems a little short. So that would be like a 10 square foot sign if that's true.
Okay.
So, and to Clark's point, I mean, as a planning department, I'm comfortable recommending to call for tenant approval at the next meeting. Pending understanding where the parking goes, because
he just
I
texted me.
think that if you wanted to, if you wanted any waivers or you wanted a bigger sign, it would be useful to know that, so that you could take action in one meeting on the signage and the tenant change. That's just a recommendation.
And I'll phrase that another way. So if you decide you want to have a sign and remove the awning, and the sign exceeds the 10 square foot that's allowed based on the linear frontage of the building, we should know that.
Okay.
And because if that's really important to you and really important for your business to be successful, if you don't get that, that's something you need to understand. If you only get the minimum required, So,
Okay.
Again, we're going to look at all the other signage that's there and how it fits with everything else, and you should do that also and recommend, or suggest or request what you want to do there, so we can have something to evaluate. Okay.
Okay.
So I think that's the open item, and then just some kind of validation with the landlord regarding parking for employees.
He just texted me. He said that those parking spots I would share with the liquor store.
All right. So you may want to take a ride by and see how full they typically are. I don't know, whether
Yeah,
they're, and how many employees they have, and whether, again, you want to be able to park somewhere yourself too, right? to be
Yeah.
successful.
Oh, yeah, that'd be nice.
Yeah. Right. So I
A
don't mind.
question I have is, does the barber pole count as a sign? If they have an applied barber pole on the outside?
I would have to look at how we've treated that in the past to make sure that we're doing it consistently, but I don't think so. But I would definitely
Yeah.
want to check and make sure that that was
Mario's
true.
has it. Mario's has the sign and the barber pole, and so did Niskuna Barbershop.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And by
Yeah,
the way,
I have
I
a hunch it
recall-
doesn't get counted, but
I don't think it does, but I would just double check that.
But on Mario's, Laura, you can pull the resolutions. I remember this conversation coming up before when Mario's went in here. So just you can pull the resolution or the file and validate what we did over there. All right. So Laura suggested that, we help this along and have a tentative resolution. Again, we don't have a problem with the business. It looks like just parking is something that would be important, to at least understand, especially for the applicant. And then the signage, of course. So if the applicant can get us some more information, can we have a tentative resolution for the next meeting? Anybody opposed to that?
I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
No one's opposed? Okay. All right. So you got your work cut out also. You get some information. We'll have any questions, call the planning office and they can help you along, okay?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Right.
Thank you.
And make sure that you know what's coming down the pike there under that street construction.
Yeah.
Yeah, we want you to be successful also,
Thanks.
Okay.
All right. Thank
All right,
you.
and thank you for your patience tonight.
No problem.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
All right, good night. All right, let's see, where the heck are we? All right, State Street. And this is a site plan application for science for the Mohawk Army Navy. And let's see, I'm not sure if we have anybody on the line for that tonight.
No, he is here. So Russ's phone number ends in the *09. Russ, this is what we were talking about on the phone call today. You need to press *69 on your phone now. Go ahead, we can hear you.
Okay, great. I'm happy about that.
Yay.
Yeah. What brought the request on here was Army Navy store has been there for years and years and years. The existing signage there it's kind of outdated. We're having some concerns now about getting parts because the LEDs are now taking over the market with illuminated signs. The signs that were shown were taken from a store that he had up in Saratoga. He actually was on Route 50, moved across the street, could get a bigger sign. So he had these nice, beautiful LED signs that he would like to place on the front of his building. And of course, having the two strong brands, Carhartt and Red Wing Shoes, is just, he felt would really enhance his business. So he's just trying to clean up. It's more efficient signage, and it's on probably the commercial intersection in Niskayuna. I mean, it's pretty busy down there, so it's a pretty simple request.
Okay. And Laura, if you have a chance, could you pull up what you have from the agenda statement? And this is basically 3 facade signs because they're separate signs, and that's the waiver that we would need to grant.
I'm sorry, what was the question?
No, I was directing that to the town planner. She's going to pull up the.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, and Chairman Walsh, we looked at this briefly at a previous meeting, and the 2 branding signs were much closer to the Army Navy sign, and our request was to have them separated, similar to the Ace Hardware sign.
So that's the proposal we're looking at now.
Yes, this was previous. This is their response to what we asked them for.
Okay. And is there also waivers for the square footage?
For the 2 additional sides, because you're only allowed 1 facade sign.
Okay. And there's nothing, I did take a ride by, but my memory's starting to fail me. On the, I guess it would be on the east side. Is there any signage on that? There is a facade sign there, right? And that stays?
On the
East, which you don't have a picture of.
Yes.
Facing this parking lot over here.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and that's going to stay the same. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
And then on the west side, there's like a banner on the side of the building, which
Right. Right.
is
And if I recall our last conversations, Mr. Henry, along with separation of signs, we weren't too keen on that big, I think it's a work boot banner on the side there, right?
I think we wanted to talk about it at some point. It's very large.
Yeah. It wasn't, yeah. So I know we have, is that a permitted sign? Is that considered a sign?
it is considered a sign, and I do not believe that it is permitted. I can probably actually. What is it? 351 State.
So I guess I would ask the applicant that's on the phone, what's your thoughts? What's the future hold for that sign on the west side?
Well, I would say that if he could get these newer signs up there, he'd be more than happy to take that banner down.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
we can make it contingent upon taking that large banner down.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of, it's not too excited about that banner personally, but again, I'm only one vote. But, thank you, Laura, for pulling that up.
Yeah, I like the front signage. It does seem like an upgrade from this, though.
Yeah,
I think.
And I tend to agree with that. Comments from the board?
Yeah, I mean, all of that sounds good. Yeah, we don't like the banner, and the front looks decent.
Yeah, and plus the banner is not permitted, and it is a sign, so you could be cited potentially for that. So I guess the way I'd like to address it, if the board's okay, we got what we asked for. I think it's an improvement, even though it's 3 signs. I think it's, as the applicant stated, it's a busy intersection. It's reasonable, and maybe we could call for a resolution next meeting, but the resolution would have a condition that the banner sign on that one wall come down, or they apply for to have it, and we evaluate it. And if we don't like it, I guess they would have the opportunity to go to the zoning board of appeals for that sign also.
Okay.
That sound reasonable? Everybody?
I think this is exactly the same place we were at the last time we discussed this, right?
Yeah, but Russ wasn't able to be at the last meeting, and then the applicant put the project on hold.
Right. I understand. No, I'm
But
just recalling that this was. I think we replayed this exactly the same, which is a good thing.
Is the proposed sign illuminated in any way? I don't believe it's internally illuminated.
No, it has exterior light fixtures, like gooseneck light fixtures.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
So I guess the only purpose for that parapet that's across the Army Navy store, I mean, this is a question for Dave.
You're on mute.
So the only purpose of that parapet that's on that goes along the exterior of the building is its purpose only for signage? Is that its only utility?
No, if you've been in there, there's a suspended ceiling, all their mechanicals and everything. That's basically just a cover over their plenum and roof. But since it's a large flat metal facade, it actually would be a perfect location for signage like this.
Thanks, Dave.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? So it sounds like we got a path forward then. A resolution approving the front facade signage with the condition that the either they take action on the I call it the west facing signage, or remove it. Their choice. By taking action, they would file to keep that, and then we would have to evaluate it and either grant a waiver or deny it and make a recommendation to the zoning board of appeals. So if the applicant is willing just to remove that, it's pretty straightforward.
Okay, so when would the decision be made on the banner sign?
That's the west side.
Yeah, on the west side. When would that decision be whether we can keep that or it has to be removed.
Well, we sounds, I guess I'll read into what I'm hearing from the board is that we're not too excited about that sign. So if it was our decision, we probably wouldn't approve it. It's right now it's a renegade sign. It's not a permanent sign. So we can go forward, and if you remove the sign, and it'll keep it quick. If you want to keep the sign, then you'd have to, tell us that and give us the dimensions, and we'd have to deny it and then take action on it. So that wouldn't happen. That wouldn't happen between now and the next meeting, would be my guess. So So I mean, I don't have a problem with it staying there, but it's going to have to come down to some certain time frame based on the approval of the front side.
Okay. All right. So we're good for the front signs are approved.
No, they're not approved, but we're calling for a resolution to approve them for the next meeting to have a resolution which approves them.
Okay.
So they will be approved in 2 weeks.
Okay.
And if you need to speak to anybody regarding the banner sign that's on the west wall, please do, and let us know if you want to maintain it and whether you want to want us to take action on allowing you to maintain it, potentially allowing you to maintain it. But I think you can hear from the board is we're not too excited about that sign.
Okay. All right. Very good. All right. Okay. Thank you for your time.
Well, thank you, and thanks for your patience tonight.
Okay.
All right. And let's see. A little bit of signs tonight. Now we got 436 Paultown Road, which is another signage. This is for the Burlington store. And we have Mr. Brenna?
That's me. That's Calvin Herrera.
Okay. How you doing, sir? Thanks for your patience.
Yep, no problem.
Maybe you can kind of brief the board on what's going on, sir.
Okay, so for this store, we have two packages, we can say. We have the temporary package and the permanent package. I will be going over the temporary first, in which is it's a 3-stage project that we're trying to do for the new Burlington that's going to be coming soon. So what we plan on putting up, I'll wait for the screen to show. Yeah, so what we're planning on putting up, it's 4 type of signage, which one is the banner that you're looking at right there at the storefront. After that, it will be a skid sign and tenant panels overlays, which is small little signage that goes over the Pylon sign, and some stake signs. So how it usually works and how they've been trying to do all this on all their locations, it's they usually put the first stage signage up, which is the coming soon, and which is the coming soon will be the banner, a skid sign, and the tenant panel overlays, which is I believe the last page page 8. So it'll be the page 8. That's if you go up a little bit. So okay, yeah. So this one is the last. It will be the last ones that will be installed on stage 3. Second stage and stage 3. It will be the coming soon. Now hiring and now open. That's what we will be having, only these. And after that, all the other signs will be on the 3 different stages.
Okay. I don't know what you call it. The one sign that's basically a ground mounted, or temporary. What do you call that? Pallet sign or?
There's 2 different ground signs, which is
ground
the sign. That one is the stake sign, which is just small little plastic signs with metal stakes that go into the ground. And then we have the skid signs, which are a little bit bigger, and they're held by sandbags.
Okay. And is the drawing state where they would be located? Are they on the sidewalk in front of the store or on the side?
Yeah, so if you go to page 2, if she can show that, it shows exactly where the signs will be going. Yeah, right there. So that part right there shows exactly. So we have, for the corner where Price Chopper is, we will be having a skid sign. We will be having just a skid sign for that corner, and then on the entrance by the GameStop, you see we have there 2 different signs. That will be 6.3. That's a stake sign, and yep, just a stake sign there. And then on the other corner, opposite corner of that, we will be having the tenant panel overlays, which is the actual pylon sign that exists, which is just the little corner inserts, little plastic corner inserts to existing pylon sign, and they're distributed differently on. So both pylon signs are going to be similar. That right there, those little corner inserts.
And do you need permission from the owner to be able to place those signs? Is that something you already have that permission?
Yeah, we have all that. Mm-hmm.
And how about timing?
So how it usually works with perfect timing on their end, if everything goes as and they have their opening date when they plan to have it, which I still don't have that. It's usually a 90-day process, which is a 30-day per stage. Sometimes it's a lot faster, and sometimes, depending on the construction, we would have to go into having a little bit more just for the coming soon is the one that usually stays a little bit longer, because the first one it's actually a 30-day flat, and then the coming soon is the one that gets backed up depending on how the construction goes.
Okay, but we're looking at like approximately 90 days total, no matter how it's distributed.
Yeah, that's the perfect scenario.
And so we're looking at basically 3 months from now for the business being open, approximately.
Yeah, correct.
This is different, so that's why I, appreciate your help here.
Mm-hmm.
This, the smaller signs that stick in the ground. To me personally, again, that's a board decision. I keep saying that. I guess I don't have too much. The skid signs worry me a little bit. But I know that it's temporary, and we want to obviously help Burlington to be successful there and people to understand that. So I personally have some flexibility. I think so excited about looking at a skid sign out on Balltown. Is that out on Balltown Road, basically, right? The one near Price Chopper.
Mm-hmm.
For 90 days. I get, how those things are. It's got sandbags on it and everything. How that goes, and whether it obstructs view or whether it just looks ugly, whatever. So that's my initial response.
Okay. As
far as the temporary signs on the facade of the building itself, I don't have a problem with any of that.
Okay.
That's just my input. But I'd love to hear, since we're just talking temporary signs, there's a lot here tonight. Maybe we get some feedback from the board regarding the temporary signs only at this time.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, I wonder if your instincts are right. I hope it doesn't feed kind of a bidding war or kind of a race to the bottom from other vendors that would want to place similar signs for whatever temporary purposes, and we find that whole corner cluttered with variations on the skid signs because, well, we've opened the door, and so everybody else would want it. So I have your concerns about the existence of that skid sign. I think it gets cluttered, and it cheapens the intersection.
Yeah, and for the applicant, maybe there's another way to get the information out there versus a skid sign. Again, a temporary sign on the pylon, temporary sign on the facade, the small signs that are, I guess, similar to a real estate sign or a political sign that stick in. I know that's temporary. The skid signs can be big and ugly. Would be my first impression.
Okay, I'll write that down and I'll give that feedback to Burlington.
If I can, what Mr. Scribby-Tennis said about the race to the bottom, I think certainly a couple stake signs makes sense as a part of a grand opening push. But what the proposal you have here is for 3 series of stake signs between the intersection of State Street and Balltown and the light for the entrance to Mohawk Commons. So to see 6 stake signs, three of each of the 2 that you've shown, I think it's a little bit of overkill
Okay.
for my taste.
Yeah, and just so you guys are aware, I just want to bring that up, that all the signage will be the same. It's just a vinyl overlay that we will be putting on the existing, like the first signage that goes up there, it's going to remain, and we'll be just replacing the vinyls on the part that says coming soon, now hiring, and now open. That's the only parts that are going to be replaced.
Yeah, I understand that, and I don't have a problem with that. I think it's just, my concern is just the skid signs, and as Mr. Scributenna stated, cheapening the neighborhood and then setting precedent also with those signs, because they're not the best looking. I mean, let's face it, right? It's going to be 2x4s and plywood with a nice vinyl sign on it, but sandbags to hold it in place. And it's going to be there, basically, you're saying, almost all summer long, also just the time of the year too, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have some concerns with that, but I'm more than okay with pylon sign temporary and facade sign temporary and some stake signs.
Okay.
All right. All right. Why don't you move on to the other signs, unless somebody has a question on those right now? Any questions? All right. Let's go ahead, Kelvin, on the next set of signs.
Okay. So for the other signs, it's the storefront signage and the side signage that we have some concerns on square footage. For the big one, for the storefront, that's a 405 square footage sign that we're trying to go with. And for the side one, we're trying to have a 155 square foot sign, which is all the way to the back of the building, facing the back road.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then we have the small little acrylic signs that will be going into the pylon, and that little heart sign that will also be placed into the front, to the storefront.
Okay. And the planning office, do we have it's probably an agenda statement, just it'd take me a while to pull it up and go through it. What the deviation is for the signage from a square footage standpoint? For the, I guess it would be the front facade and the north facing facade.
Laura, I'll answer the first part at least. There is an existing variance for a 146 square foot variance for a sign measuring 196 square feet at the front elevation. They would be asking for an additional variance of 209 square feet, which gets them to their 405 square foot sign, the way it currently stands.
Okay. And bear with me, I'm just scrolling through the package here to try to get to the agenda statement. And the what we typically ask, and I hate to put the planning office on the spot, but we also ask, like Lowe's or any of the other businesses, have they all have waivers or variances for their signage?
It's a mixture of waivers and variances, depending on how they were constructing it and when they submitted their building permits. It's actually a mixture, but almost everything down there has a signage waiver. There's very few signs down there that are 50 square feet or less.
Yeah.
So off the top of my head, I couldn't tell you. I know we do have a spreadsheet. It might be a little old now, but I couldn't tell you which one has a waiver versus a variance. It's a mixture.
Okay.
Is there like a percentage anywhere that can kind of like give sort of a proportional area? Just because, again, if we're continuing to talk about precedence and also kind of scale compared to everything else.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just to comment, and I've been having issues with Burlington in a lot of towns because of that. Unfortunately, their logo has a huge letter B shape, heart shape, so that kills them on the square footage a lot. Just to bring that up, and have it as a comment.
Yeah, so in other words, if you use the B for the height of the area, it kind of triggers it over, right?
Mm-hmm. Correct.
Yeah.
I mean, we can certainly check Lowe's and some other of the large stores like that.
One of the things we typically do is that we always kind of ask the applicant to do the best they can, to conform the best they can, right? A lot of times we'll get a request that's, seems to be a large waiver, a large variance request. And sometimes we just, ask the applicant, or you go back to Burlington and say, hey, you're asking for a lot here. What's the minimum you'll do with? Even if the minimum exceeds the requirement, we're willing to always work with you, but is that what they really need? Is that the sign that they have on all the stores? Is that the size that they have on for approximately the same linear footage facade? Those are all questions.
Yes. Yeah. I've been dealing with this client a lot lately, and I've been into a lot of variances because of this storefront signage. And in some cases, for this one, I'm pretty sure they're going to mention that they're unfortunately all the way to the corner, and that they're behind certain like Marshalls and all that blocks the main road view. They're going to bring all that up. I can definitely talk to them and see what's the lower they can go, but I'm not sure what they really want, and we'll have to see if what different steps will have to be taken, I believe.
Yeah. Because my gut feeling here is this one's a little bit different than the last signage things we talked about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where we've already had like one evolution, like for the Army Navy store, where the applicant has come back and worked with us. So I know you probably have a sense of urgency also because you want to get this going.
Mm-hmm.
My gut tells me that we're not too excited about the what do you call those signs? Ones on the platforms, or the
skid signs?
Skid signs. We're not too excited about those. We're okay with the I think we're okay with the temporary signs on the facade. We're okay with some of the stick-in signs, temporarily. And that we think that the signs, we'd like to push back a little bit to see what the the minimum that they would go to, which obviously is a maximum in our view.
Okay.
And before we do the analysis and make the recommendation. We just received this, on Friday. Basically, it's the first time the board's had an opportunity to look at it.
Mm-hmm.
But your point's well taken about the location, and that's why there was previous waivers granted for the previous business because of the location, and we understand that. And again, just like I told everybody else, we want you to be successful there.
Okay.
And we'll take a good hard look at it. But I got a feeling we're not going to be ready for a resolution on this one. We just need to push back a little bit, at least one time.
Okay. And that will be for the storefront only, or the side as well? Because the side, I did see that it's not going as much bigger than the existing one, or what was there previously.
Yeah, well, it's allowed, right, on that's the planning lot. I know it's allowed because there's a street there, it faces a street, so it's allowed. It's just a matter of how much bigger is it than what's allowed, and what the variance is there. But obviously, I think you need a sign there too, and I think that would benefit the applicant. So it's just a matter of minimizing the request as far as you can go, and making sure we're comfortable with it.
Okay.
But I'd like, again, I don't want to do all the talking here. And the board, am I off base, guys?
No. Well, Chairman Walsh, just for the record, I think on the side they were looking for an additional 11 square feet. 11? They have a 94 square foot variance for a sign measuring 144 square feet. They were looking for an additional 11 square feet.
Okay. Well, so that's reasonable in my view for that side. And again, it's a board decision. But the skid signs, I'm not too excited about. Temporary signs, okay. And I'm also okay with the little heart, I don't know what you call that shaped thing. I don't know if the board has any thoughts on that, because that also needs a waiver, because that's considered an additional sign, right, Laura? Clark?
It's an additional sign, and it's also a sign with a logo comprising more than 30% of the sign. So it would be similar to the TD Bank sign, where the logo constitutes the the entire sign, and it would be a second sign on one facade.
Yeah. And Laura, can I bug you to pull that up again one more time?
Yeah, I was just looking into some of the variances of the other signs while you guys were talking, and like Lowe's is in the range of 360 to 380 and received a variance for the west facing sign. The north facing sign, I agree with you, that's pretty reasonable. It's only 11 feet different than what was there.
How does the Lowe's frontage compare?
It's way more.
Yeah, it's way more.
I was just gonna look up Target because that's the other really big one that we have. I was just gonna look that one up. But Lowe's got a variance for 282 square feet, and they were allowed an 80 square foot sign, so that's in the 362 range. It may have changed a little bit. It may end up being more like 380, but it's not 400 that I can tell.
Laura, it seems just based on this slide you have up, the Bed Bath & Beyond sign was a comparable square footage.
Am
I eyeballing that correctly?
Oh, from this, just looking at this. Yeah. That may be because, and this is probably worth looking at, and Clark, you can jump in here. That may be because this heart bumps it up and we have to draw a square around it. So you have maybe a lot of empty space up here, whereas this filled the whole square. But this looks like it is going on to that pylon a little bit. So I think that, like, if you look at this, these are the pillars here, right? Those are the pillars. And this is actually starting on the pillar. So I think it's actually filling this space here quite a bit more.
It's longer.
Although, like, this wise, it looks like it really is about the same. It's just the word is longer.
Yeah, it's just longer. Yep.
So are the pillars being covered, or what's happening to the facade to create this red box look?
Yeah, so it's going to be a new facade, basically for the storefront. So you're not gonna have so it's approximately, from what they mentioned, like 5-foot pillars that is going to be added to the sign area, we can say, on each side. So a total of 10 feet, 10 additional feet from left to right that it's going to be available for signage.
Yeah, I'm from the existing. So you're talking about on here and here, it's like 10 feet. Yeah, because the word is longer.
So we're really talking more than just sign. We're talking about, colors here also. And that's the corporate color of Burlington. That's what all the signs look like, their stores with the red.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, so Kevin, to that point, we would probably have to just double check what we did for Target, because I believe that it's supposed to be earth tones. And so if you guys are okay with the red, we would include a waiver for the red as well.
Right.
Yeah, there's got to be some uniformity with that on Target, right? Because we were.
Yeah, there's some specific things to the applicant regarding the color scheme with this mall, and the facades, the amount of reveal. I think there's a whole design standards that were put in place when this mall was redeveloped from the conventional mall to an open air mall. So it was a whole change.
So that one's fine, but the colors on this one would probably need a waiver.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Calvin, waiver to change the facade?
For just the colors, I'm pretty sure we did that on Target.
They're changing the architectural features of the facade as well.
So, like, because this isn't going to be recessed, you're saying? This is no longer going to be recessed?
Well, they're eliminating a bunch of cornice on the pillars, are they not?
Oops.
Oops. Yeah, the pillar above the base from the ground is
the
Oh, I
cornice.
see what you're saying. Like between here and here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll double check that too.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Mr. McPartland. So there's all those designs. This has to be reviewed against the design standards, that are in the zoning ordinance there that tell you how many linear feet without a reveal and all those things to see if there's any other waivers that are required. So we need to do a little bit more work on this one.
Okay.
Yeah, we need to do a little bit more work on this one. So it's more than just a sign. It's a facade change, you know.
Mhm.
All right, so summarize. Seems like we, you know, again, tell me if I'm wrong, board. Seems like we're okay with the, would be the north side. It's only about 11 square feet difference. Seems reasonable. Color seems reasonable. Not changing the color of the facade on the north side, correct? It's staying the same facade on the north side, sir?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. All right, so we're not excited about the platform or skid signs.
Okay.
We're okay with temporary signs on the facade and on the sign up front on the pylon sign. Okay with some stick in the ground temporary signs.
Okay.
They'll probably get lost or destroyed, but that's another story. But we need to look at the red versus the design standards in the commercial shopping area, and we need to the planning office, more work for them. Take a look at the Target and Lowe's, et cetera, and just so we have a comparison of what we've allowed, so we can make sure we give this application the same justice, I guess, whatever you want to call it. But we need to have an understanding of what we've given in the past.
Okay.
And we get all that data. And Calvin, if you you know, talk to Burlington, you know, tell them about our concerns, and you know, see if you can minimize it. It would only help the cause. And then we'll pick it up again at the next meeting, summarize where we stand with all that stuff. And if we're in a better spot, we can call for a resolution, but it won't be till the next meeting. Okay.
Okay. Perfect.
That sound like a reasonable path forward, everybody?
One small point, somewhere in there, would that include maybe eliminating the heart-shaped B on the like yellow, just the logo by itself on that large facade? So I don't think it adds anything, and I think it really detracts from the looks.
I mean, that's
It's labeled C in the last picture we looked at. That's my 2 cents.
Yep, thank you, appreciate it, and we can take a look at that. You gonna pull that up again, Laura? Where we go?
Whoops. Ah. Here. It's non-illuminated. That's the one you're talking about, though, right, Leslie? The non-illuminated one?
I think so. It was down low. Its own background color.
There we go.
Right
Yeah.
there, see.
It's non-illuminated, but they have it here on this one part.
I don't care. It just adds nothing to the looks.
Now,
And
is maybe the applicant can answer this. So there's windows there. Are they going to be blanked out in order to
Yeah. So,
facilitate?
yep, it's going to be a new wall, and the thickness of that sign, it's really small. It's, I believe, 1/2 inch from. Let me just confirm. Yep, 1/2 inch pin mounted to the wall.
Okay. But the tan, you know, the color, I guess that's an earth tone, so it may be compliant, believe it or not. But you might want to take a look at that too.
Okay.
Well, we're trying to keep the number of colors on any particular facade down, and that just seems pointless.
Yeah, it seems. I mean, at least in this image, it seems awful bright. If you take a look at the, you know, the other tan, you know, along the ground, along those pillars there, it's you know, it's more of a sandy color. That's very, very tan. I don't know if it could be darkened up a little bit to blend a little bit better. You know, I'm not an artist or the expert. Just talking out loud here.
Okay. Yeah, it's. I mean, with the color, I will have to talk to them and see what exact color it is. Maybe give us a name, because visually on the design, whatever they put over a picture is going to look a lot different.
Yeah.
The actual final product.
If you have a picture of another store that has the same scheme, that'd be nice too.
Okay. Yeah, I think we do have one nearby that it's getting finished. I can maybe have someone drive by and take a picture of that. And
Yeah, or give us a link to you know, something we can take a look at.
okay.
All right. All right, any other thoughts, anybody? So it's going to be a work in progress, at least for one more meeting. I think we got a lot to digest on this one. But I think we'll get there. We'll get at least somewhere at a happy medium at a minimum.
Okay.
All right.
I will contact the client on the concerns and have answers for you guys.
All right. All right. Thank you very much, and we look forward to seeing you next meeting. And if you need anything, contact the planning office, and we can make sure we get everything covered. Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Okay. Have a good night.
Yeah. Thank you to the board. All right. So let's see. We're going to step back to CVS. We have. I'm sorry to get your name, sir.
Hi, Mr. Walsh and the board. My name is Josh Roth. I'm a senior project manager with CVS Health Architecture and Engineering.
Hey, Mr. Roth. Thank you, and thanks for your patience for waiting. We had some conversation earlier. I don't know if you were able to hear any of it or regarding the application for the Balltown Road CVS. I guess I have a little bit of a list here.
Sure.
I guess I could go down them, and the board can jump in and see if I missed anything.
Yep, absolutely, and appreciate your patience too on my end. Sorry for the delay.
No problem. So I think we'd start with, just at the top of my list, Mr. Oster's comments, questions regarding operation. Maybe Mo, you could mention it to this applicant here. Mr. Roth.
Yeah, no, I mean, is this basically a medical office within a CVS? Is it a clinic? And if it's a clinic, does it have to get approval from the state?
It really all depends on your services. So if you look at a urgent care, it is not an urgent care. If you compare it to a primary care physician's office, it is not that either. We offer a limited amount of health services to customers through a nurse practitioner that is on site.
Yeah. But I'm saying, is that a medical office renting space from CVS, or is that a employee of CVS?
Can you repeat that one more time?
Is that a medical practitioner renting space from CVS, or is that a person employed by CVS?
It is a Minute Clinic nurse practitioner. Minute Clinic is technically a separate entity, and they have their own license through Minute Clinic, but Minute Clinic is also wholly owned by CVS.
So it is a separate entity, though, technically.
Correct.
Okay. But there's not something that needs to get like an Article 28 approval from the state health department.
I'm not aware of that particular article, but
sorry, a clinic in that sense typically needs to be approved by the state government in order, but a doctor's office or nurse practitioner's office does not need to be that. That's why I was curious whether it is a separate entity or it's part of the CVS itself.
Yeah, it's hate to be a little money on it, but it's a little bit of both, right? So we do have a separate Minute Clinic entity that has their own licensing team. So the services that we offered are licensed through Minute Clinic, and then our store and corporate is above that, and it would fall under that nurse practitioner category and not necessarily the primary care physician.
Right. It's just I haven't seen that in this area before. And I guess I'm wondering whether this kind of construct exists anywhere else in this area.
I looked into your jurisdiction, and I didn't see a similar one. I see a lot of urgent cares. I see a lot of obviously, primary care physicians. We do get these questions because it is a special use. It's a hybrid retail and service space. And I can certainly look into the nearest Minute Clinic that we're offering the same services at, and I could definitely come back to the board with a little more information regarding what specific licenses we could apply for, if that would be amenable to you.
Yeah, I would appreciate the clarification because, again, by my understanding that they can't hire nurse practitioners to deliver services to the public, but they can rent space within that structure. But I could be mistaken. I'm just not. I've seen this in like New York City. I just haven't seen this in this area.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, we do have it in New York State. We also kind of fall within the same kind of middle area with other states, specifically Massachusetts and the Department of Public Health. Right. We're in this kind of middle area where we're not just a pharmacy, and we're certainly not primary care, urgent care. So we're
each state has their
out.
own licensing laws. Each state has their own licensing laws,
Correct.
Clinic structures, and so that's why what you do in Massachusetts may not matter for New York and vice versa.
Oh, no, absolutely. Obviously that's something that Massachusetts isn't going to apply to New York.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to convey to the board is that, it is it's a special condition. It is a special service we'd like to give to, your citizens and our customers. And we want to try to expand health services, throughout our fleet. And, this is, it's not necessarily surprising you have questions because this is new to this area. So I would agree with you.
But I guess because I'm backing into, is it a business within a business or is it part of that business?
Is it a business or this?
If I could jump in, I think that's the real question we're asking here, because when this started, they spoke to Laura and I about the function of providing this clinical type service within the CVS. And we looked at the code, it's clearly different than coming to CVS to get a shot. You're coming to get diagnosed for a specific condition. So that's what kind of drove the need for a special use permit of having two uses under one building. The question that's really interesting is ownership. Is it a CVS employee, or as Mr. Oster is saying, is it a different entity? That's what we hadn't worked through.
So for instance, what we do with some of our stores is, a lot of these individual stores could be their own entity within a region. So for instance, in certain parts of New Jersey, it's CVS Pharmacy Incorporated. So it's compartmentalized. In Minute Clinic's case, in which they would be licensing these Minute Clinic spaces in this particular store for this special use permit, they would hold the license. So the license would be with Minute Clinic. It may say that we are in a CVS pharmacy retail location, but I can come back to the board and get a specified answer and get a little more clarification on the route that our licensing team takes in order to get this properly approved for your jurisdiction.
Okay.
Great. And you mentioned service. Can you give us some examples of the service provided to help me out?
Sure. So, take any kind of immunization services and consultation services that we would have at any normal CVS pharmacy and take that a little further. So typically we would have anywhere from 12 or plus immunizations available for the public. We also have things like in this expanded care model for this particular store, we would offer things like preventative care. We would offer diabetic services as well. Blood pressure treatment. We can also offer simple things like sports physicals for kids for schools. And in some of our retail locations, we're also offering COVID testing and COVID immunizations.
Thank you.
What about first aid?
Yep, first aid. Anything I would say up and to and excluding any kind of broken bones. If somebody comes in with a potential broken bone anywhere, we would send them elsewhere.
And I'm glad you mentioned that. If you were to send them elsewhere, would you send them out the front door?
Well, first off, we have specialized equipment in every Minute Clinic location. We have a defibrillator. We have a crash kit just in case a patient comes in and has a treatment, has a debilitating condition that we can't treat immediately. Nurse practitioners are trained to at least take care of first aid for that customer until paramedics arrive if they cannot exit the store. I can also get an answer regarding the operations of how that patient leaves the store. I believe they're escorted by that nurse practitioner until other people arrive if the patient cannot leave the premises by themselves.
Okay. That'd be helpful information. Thank you.
Not a problem.
I'll again try to remember the things that came up. One was traffic. The concern that it's retail now and then go into a mixed use, dual use. That there'd be a higher turnaround, of course. Now that's taken into account because it's considered a medical office, and we can do the numbers for the parking and so on and so forth. But what does it do for traffic? There's a traffic engineer's handbook. Gives you so many trips generated. So there's going to be so many trips generated as a retail store, and now we're adding this other use to it. And what does that do to those numbers? So we don't know. We haven't researched that. So we're hoping that the applicant would give us some information on that, whether it be a statement or pull numbers out of the traffic handbook and say, hey, and then what that leads to, whether or not we need to consider the traffic flow in the parking lot there as a result, if those numbers are of concern,
Sure.
Especially.
Okay, go ahead.
No, that was it. Because if you've been over to the store there, if you come out the front door, if you hang a right, you're on Balltown Road. That's great. It's a very high traffic area. It's great if you're going north. If you're going to go south, you're better off going to the left and picking up the side street, Van Antwerp, and queuing in that light, and then going south on Van Antwerp. So, a question from the board member was, do we need to consider signage as a result of any impacts, or are the impacts minimal, so there's no concerns? So we just need some kind of information regarding that.
Sure. Excellent question.
Yeah.
Regarding parking, we like to measure parking at CVS in the worst possible case scenario. So we did numerous parking studies to try to figure out how many parks specifically do we need for our new stores going forward across the country. So we wanted to see how many parking spots are actually utilized across the country at the worst time. So at the worst time for us, we would assume that that's going to be Black Friday, and it's going to be anywhere from 9 o'clock or 8 o'clock in the morning to, let's say, 5 or 6 in the afternoon. In this particular store here in your jurisdiction, I actually pulled up the cameras for the parking lot during that time, Black Friday last year, 2020. And of the parking spots that I was able to view on both cameras facing the front and the front side, which are the prime locations there, we were looking at about 53% capacity. So of the roughly 38 parking spots I was able to view, at the highest amount, 20 were being used. And that's on the absolute worst day. That's not including a second tier parking that I could not see. We don't have a camera there. And it also does not include the rear parking towards the receiving end of the store. So you're roughly looking at a 53% capacity at the worst case scenario on a Black Friday. If you look at the particular program that we're proposing for this store, we're looking at 3 rooms for our minute clinic. If you're looking at the worst case for flu season, is when we would expect to use all 3 of them at the worst case scenario. You have a practitioner for each of those, so that would be 3 extra employees, as well as a care concierge, which is our point person to manage and direct and help the customers coming into the waiting area. So worst case scenario, you're looking at an additional 4 employees versus the program we have currently at the store, and any additional customers, patients in the waiting area that are coming to receive services.
Okay. And in the planning office also, took a look based on the proposed uses, how that would be distributed. And I think we were pretty good with the parking on our end also. More of a traffic concern about, trip generation and ingress and egress to the site is more of the comment there, okay? The other comment was, in order to facilitate the square footage required for this service, you're going to be eliminating some aisles. Were you actually eliminating or compressing retail space? In other words, the aisles or whatever products you had there, are you going to compress elsewhere or add shelving elsewhere in order to keep the same amount of product?
We actually are not going to keep the same amount of products. In order to accommodate this new service for our customers, we actually, really chew into a lot of the existing retail. So we're actually, gaining open space on the retail floor. And typically we like to have obviously a 36-inch minimum aisles, which is the worst case scenario, absolutely. But in this case, we're actually proposing, I'm looking at the aisles right now, the lowest aisle that I see in the general retail area is 4'6". I do have 1 4-foot aisle at the very front of the store, but you have some aisles that exceed, 4 feet for a vast majority of the store.
Okay, so that's very useful information. So bottom line is you will be eliminating products.
Yes, that's correct.
Is there a thought as to what those products are today, or is that just detailed for later?
Typically, they're usually the underperforming products. The trend in retail these days are less of the cards category. So your Hallmark categories are typically lessened, and we'd actually be increasing on the health quadrant. So we actually be offering potentially more durable medical equipment like crutches, canes, transfer chairs for the elderly, compression stockings for diabetic customers. And we're trying to synergize the new health offering that we're proposing here with an adjacent and complementary health offering the retail floor.
Okay, thank you. I'll go down my list again. Okay, and this kind of came up, Mr. McPartland's question, a separate entrance is, again, I'd have to pull up the drawings to take another look because I studied them a little bit more in depth, but, obviously customer walks in the front door, but deliveries or emergency is at the front door. Is there an emergency or a secondary access?
This is not for emergency services. So this is not for emergency use. This is not to supplement or take away or provide emergency services or in lieu of an emergency room in a typical hospital or urgent care.
Okay, so it'll be front door as business as usual.
Correct.
Right. And one of the comments we heard earlier then is some of the deliveries are coming through the front door, taking up parking spaces. It's just kind of awkward. So I don't know if there's a procedure or process that CVS typically uses where deliveries even for UPS should be from a side door, or anything you could tell us about that?
Yeah, that could be an operational issue with some third-party delivery and logistic companies. It could be UPS and FedEx's of the world. It could also be some brand partners. It could be a soft drink company that comes in and potentially stock the coolers there. Operationally, it is ideal for them to come through the receiving area and then through the appropriate hallway, right kind of down the main drive aisle of the store rather than straight through the front. And ideally, we try to keep those logistical partners to off hours to minimize any kind of customer visual impact.
Right. Maybe you can just pass it on that, to the store manager, to something to watch for because their concern has come up on that. Okay.
Understood.
And next thing on my list is, go ahead. Somebody have a question?
I can provide some specifics. Last Friday, mid-morning, it was soda delivery. It was a large vehicle, and it took the second row of parking, not the one adjacent to the building, but the first one beyond that. Other times I've seen paper products, different vehicles. I did see a FedEx, I think, one day, but it's been a wide assortment of vehicles. Typically mid-morning, I have actually been stuck in a parking spot. And another customer guided me out as they were trying to get to their car because you really couldn't see around the truck to see if traffic was coming. So even though I could have gone one way to get to in Antwerp, I wasn't sure I wasn't going to get creamed or cross into another vehicle because the delivery truck was blocking the view so thoroughly. It's been ongoing for months. So it is a definite problem.
Well, you can pass that on to the management over there. And if the expectation that there's a delivery door, it's staffed, maybe it's something we need to evaluate. Garbage, medical waste generated as part of this process. Is there like any outdoor storage of any medical waste, or is that something that's just removed internally and out the front door by some kind of a pickup?
Yep, we have a medical waste contractor vendor, and it is stored in the secured minute clinic space, or in the pharmacy case, within the pharmacy as medical waste. So it has if you've seen in your local doctor's office or clinic, a needles receptacle or a biohazard receptacle. All these spaces do have all the receptacles needed to store that waste securely.
Yeah. It doesn't sound like there's a large volume of that. Is that a fair statement?
Typically, the largest volume of medical waste, biohazard waste, is going to be your sharps, needles for immunizations. If you look at the CVS fleet as a whole, it holds the case too, because we do a lot of immunizations, especially come flu time, and especially with COVID.
Okay. All right, and the last comment, last thing I have written down, and I'll open up to the board, was this. There was a comment by a resident regarding garbage and housekeeping around the garbage enclosure out there. So there's some concerns. Again, just a sidebar that you could pass on to the management over there. That is what I had on my list board. What I missed? Anything?
So, Chairman Walsh, I don't think you missed anything, but I think we do formally want to request at least some kind of a passenger of a trip count associated with the new retail with less product, less square footage, and the clinic. Right. So I think probably maybe the handbooks, to give us some indication of where we might expect the traffic to go. I think from a parking perspective, you're fine. Right, the planning department was able to run that down.
I agree. I think that's something we talked about before Mr. Roth joined us. If pull the handbooks and let us know for the medical service portion, how that changes the versus the retail, the split for the trip generation, and whether it's something that triggers something that we have that may be a concern that we have to address with signage or traffic flow. And if the case it isn't, it isn't a problem, obviously it makes it easier for all of us and easier for CVS, but we just need to just understand that. I think that was.
Is there another case that I can reference potentially that you've been presented as well?
I can't think of any, but I do know that, the engineers that usually look into that usually go to the traffic engineer's handbook and just they pull the numbers, and so here's what it is when it's retail, and here's what it is for this amount of square footage for a service, medical, and the difference is X, and it's a concern or it isn't a concern, and that way you just know whether we have a problem.
Yep, I think with the quadrant that we're taking for this new potential service, when you take that away and you apply the same load, to the retail that was in that place, I think we'll get to a good number. Let me see what I can do for you.
And you might have some experience from another location, how for same square footage, kind of business it generates, and if there's any concerns there, anything you can do to help us out, and we can help you. Okay?
Yeah, absolutely, not a problem.
All right. You have any questions for the board, Mr. Roth?
I have some takeaways. We'll take a look at the licensing and ownership track that we have on our end here, and I can certainly present that back to the board, whether it be in public session or through an email communication with some attached collateral, whatever the board and Mr. Walsh deems appropriate. I can certainly bring up the deliveries with our logistical partners to our operations. And then specifically with the dumpster, was it an aesthetic issue with the enclosure?
Just keeping it tidy and make sure things are within the enclosure and utilizing the enclosure as it was designed.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. And then it seems like the last takeaway I have is the traffic trip count and some kind of generation report that I can bring back.
Yeah.
Did I capture everything?
Yes, I think you did, because we've already decided, the front entrance is the entrance, so that was the only other one. And, I think in general, the board views this as a positive for the community. We just want to make sure that it's going to work from a functional standpoint. All right.
So Mr. Roth does know that we have to go through a process where we make a recommendation to the town to give a special use permit. So
understood.
Right.
Would that recommendation come at the next public meeting like this one? Would it come through an email after that material I sent to you?
Yeah. I think we need to get just a first cut of information. And then what we'll do is we also have to have a public hearing and make a recommendation to the town board, because they're the only ones that can issue the special use permit for the two businesses at this location. And so we get enough information, we'll call for the public hearing. As soon as we possibly can, we'll have the public hearing and make the recommendation. Unfortunately, the town board will also have to have a public hearing and then send it back to us with, hopefully with a positive outcome. And then we'll finish up the process. So it's going to take a little bit of time just because of the way the meetings fall.
Understood.
I was going to ask you guys, since you have answers to some of your questions, if you wanted to call for a public hearing or if you want to wait.
Yeah, I'm comfortable having a resolution meeting
Okay.
So it'd be a resolution at the next meeting calling for a public hearing, right, Laura? That's what you.
Well, so you have to do the resolutions calling for a public hearing for subdivision because they're joint with seeker determinations. But typically on site, and that's New York state law, typically on site plans, you don't have to do a seeker determination until later in the project. And so you can actually verbally call for a public hearing at a meeting for us to hold. What I probably would recommend is not, you occasionally call for a public hearing and a resolution for action pending, tentatively pending the public hearing. In this case, I think we could handle calling for the public hearing and holding it at the next meeting. And then pending that, have a resolution at the end of the month would be.
Yeah. I definitely did not want to have a resolution and a public hearing at the same time. So I just meant strictly calling for the public hearing. So you're saying that we can call for that public hearing today?
You can verbally call for a site plan public hearing. You can never do that with a subdivision.
Right.
I'm okay with that, Mr. Khan, if you are and the rest of the board's okay.
I'm okay, and if the rest of the board is okay.
Yeah, I mean, the good part about that is since we won't have the resolution, if we hear something that we've missed from the public or any concerns, that'll give the applicant the opportunity to address those before the resolution, because I'm sure they'd have the same concerns in front of the town board, which is the authority that would issue the special use permit. So it'll only help your case. So I think that's a good thing.
So there was some value for Mr. Roth to join and
yes, there was.
Take us back in the agenda. So I think I'm okay with calling for the public hearing next time.
And I think one of the most important things for the public hearing will probably be the trip generation, what the impact is on traffic there. Is that probably something that the public usually comes up with any business in that area?
Yep.
It's an important thing over along Balltown Road. Okay.
Right. Just for you to know, Mr. Roth, it's a very highly congested area in the town. And so we just want to make sure that we have our eyes wide open about what to expect by way of any increased usage.
Great how that works, right? It's highly congested, so we're concerned about traffic, but it's highly congested, so CVS loves it because a lot of trip cars go by all the time.
What did Yogi Berra say? Nobody goes there anymore because there's too many people.
Oh yeah.
No one goes there anymore. It's too crowded.
Exactly.
Yeah, there we go. So close.
The Yankee fan would remember that one.
Yeah.
So I've got some takeaways back for the board, and thanks again, Mr. Walsh and the board for bringing me in here at the end. It sounds like if I can, demonstrate the traffic trip count, it sounds like this is on your end at least favorable to pursue.
I think that's fair.
Excellent.
All right.
Is there a good guesstimate on if everything goes well as far as timing? When I can talk to my construction partners to see if we can start projecting a construction schedule?
Well, May 10th would be the public hearing. So it would be 2 weeks. So it would be May 24th would be the resolution. But that only moves it on to the town board. You really need the town board approval, I believe, right, Laura, before to be able to get a building permit. So
yeah.
This
timeline, you need a month for the recommendation. Sometime a month to 2 months for the town board. It's hard to say with them. We can try and plan it so that it's on the lesser side if possible, and then back to planning board. So, it's like 2 to 3 months.
3 months.
Well, 3. Yeah, Mr. Khan.
I know that wasn't necessarily a fair question, but I have to ask it. So
that's just the way that the meeting schedules all fall, of course. So.
Okay.
All right, and feel I always say call the planning office because it's easy for me to say, but they're always willing to help you if you have any questions in the meantime. Okay.
Excellent.
All right.
Just one last final question: are there other than things like blood pressure and blood sugar and all those kinds of diagnostics? Is there going to be any diagnostic equipment other than that in any of those rooms?
I can certainly look at the fixture and equipment list, but we typically have an integrated panel in the wall of each of these rooms. So that will do the typical equipment, the stethoscope, the blood pressure monitor, and a lot of our pharmacies we have a blood pressure monitor already. So it's going to be just a redundant service offered in private rooms for maintaining not only the customer's privacy but their record privacy as well.
Okay.
Okay. Well, thank you, Mr. Roth.
Thank you, everybody. Have a good night.
We'll be in
Appreciate it.
touch.
Thanks.
Okay, and that brings us to reports, and I appreciate we had a long meeting tonight, just like the old days again, huh? So under reports, we'll move right to Laura with 3410 State Street. Or Mr.
Yeah, Clark
Henry.
can talk about this one a little bit. He was just going to update you on the timelines that he's been working through.
Yeah, just a quick update. It's in our minutes from the last meeting. We kind of pressed Mr. Serafini to submit plans so that he could receive his denial. We know he needs some area variances for his proposed addition. He wasn't able to get them into us in time for this meeting, but he's still working on that. So that's kind of the next step for him to give us just enough details so that he can get his denial and keep the process moving on.
Okay. Thanks, Clark. Keep poking. All right, and 1448 Balltown Road, Ace Hardware, something new there, Laura?
Well, just to the signage, and Clark's also been working on this one for me, is the Ace Hardware is kind of exploded on their temporary signage, which isn't really approved. So what Clark and I wanted to do is reach out to them and get a game plan for what's going on with their temporary signage, and then also get a game plan for their permanent signage. This may be because they weren't able to put their greenhouse on, but we want to touch base with them and jump in, Clark. They don't have the facade signs up yet.
It's still very much a construction site. They actually, if you've been there, the back parking lot, they've got a bunch of stone blocking up one whole portion of the parking lot. So you can't get down past where the propane tank is. There's a lot of materials stored on the back. So, you know, it's been 9 months. So we were just proposing maybe a little meeting with them to map out some next steps. It's a very visible spot in the town. Some people love it, some people don't like it. So we just want to make sure we're being proactive with them and making them stick to the resolution.
Okay, thank you. And great. And Laura, not street improvements.
Yeah, I've actually still been receiving some comments. The majority of them are still confusion about the difference between a mini roundabout and like a traffic circle. And I said this before, I feel like I need to respond to them specifically with some information about a mini roundabout, because I feel like there is almost anger the town would consider a mini roundabout in a neighborhood, because the feeling is that means that we're pushing cars into the neighborhood and trying to make it like a throughway, whereas a mini roundabout is essentially a stop sign. It's just a different way to do a stop sign. So it's the complete opposite of what people are concerned about. But and this is what I said, so I'm still getting a couple comments, but what I want to do is tally them up, put them in a table, kind of list out, you know, what the concerns were. And then I don't know if I told you guys this or not, but MJ is willing to do a final draft. So, I want to tally up the comments, get a consensus of where we're at, and then get a final draft that I can have, so I can have the draft and then a list of the comments so that we can show that we addressed as many of them as we could in an idea, still not funded, but the idea would be there, and that would be something that we could use for grants or whatever we wanted to do to try and move that forward.
That'd be great.
Hey, Laura, like I said, you need to find another word for it. It's not roundabout or traffic circle.
Because I had a couple comments come in, like even it wasn't yesterday. Thursday or Friday of last week, and they were still very much like, how dare you put a roundabout in my neighborhood?
Well, people I think are envisioning what was put kind of like in River and River and Balltown, not River and Balltown. I mean River and Rosendale.
River and Rosendale, yeah, and the Balltown Road one, yeah, it's not. Yeah, right. Those facilitate traffic, whereas a mini roundabout is calming and.
Right, but the mini kind of sounds like it's the same thing. So it's almost like I don't know if like it's like a donut. I mean, you're like putting a donut in the middle of like that area.
Yeah, I feel bad because we're trying to reach out with traffic calming and cause people to feel better, but like this has created a little bit of anxiety. So I would like to try and address that if I can.
Yeah, that'd be great to summarize, Laura, and to get it to a final. Then at least we know where we stand. We can. Put a bow on it for now, at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. And then we can, send that out to see what we can do with it.
And COVID-19, I'm assuming we're still waiting for town board, right? Bottom line is once town board kicks up, then we'll see where we stand. For,
Yeah, I
in-person
know the
meeting.
meeting's getting late. The town board did announce that the finance committee is going to be our first in-person meeting in May. So I think that they'll do some, it sounds like they're going to try and do the town board in person in May, which would mean that the planning board would potentially be the next month or so, depending on what the limitations are for people in person. But one thing I wanted you guys to think about, and you still have to figure out how to do this logistically, but not doing the paper packets is helpful to the planning department. It's also helpful to trees.
Yeah.
But I know that there are some struggles. So we were thinking like some kind of hybrid, you know, like where big plans maybe are still printed for you guys or whoever wants them, but doing an electronic packet. But the weird thing about doing an electronic packet in person is that, like, as far as I know, we're not providing you guys with, you know, iPads
Devices,
yet.
yeah.
Yeah, so you would be bringing in your personal devices because that would be where you have to have your packet. So I don't know exactly how it would work, but if there's some way we can make it so that we don't have to go back to paper packets, that would be great. I don't know what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, I've always been a big part for that, so I was strongly, but it's going to be tied to some kind of a device availability. We need to literally be doing what we're doing now in the meeting. And so I don't know, maybe it's a purchase of, you know, like the school district does, a purchase of Chromebooks or something that comes with every meeting, or, you know, they don't stay with us, but they stay with the town.
Yeah.
And the AV department just puts them up when we have the meeting in person.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I print select pages to be able to talk from, you know, because I fortunately have a printer, you know, that works and everything. But, you know, the difficulty I have is with the agenda statements, trying to jump back and forth during the meeting to try to look things up. You know, that's hard, but I understand, and I think we can get by without. Well, we might need, you know, at least maybe a copy of the plans that we can share, or at least the project lead and the chairman at least have copies of some things, you know, because it's especially if you're going back and forth between the meeting, you know. But
yeah, I mean, normally I have two windows open. There's one file for scrolling and the other one to actually just check the agenda.
Yeah.
But I don't know, other folks can talk, but I think if we could just get away from paper would be the best thing in the world.
you know, I think it's a good thing to do. So as long as we can handle it. Yep. And the last was the historic preservation town code that I believe Dr. Brennan agreed to do a draft for us, or for the town. So,
Yeah, I mean, Kevin, you can kind of talk to that one. He did send in a draft. I haven't had a chance to take a look at it because our agenda was so heavy this meeting, but we do have something to look at. So I think the intention, or Clark, is that we'll bring it to the next meeting for you guys to take a look at.
right. Yeah, you guys got a lot going on that was identified to do tonight also. So appreciate it. Okay. Do you have anything else, Laura?
Well, I know it's a super late meeting, but I have been getting a couple emails about a rezone for the Martin Harding and Mazzotti building on the border of the town of Niskayuna and Colony. So it's not something that the town has to comment on, but I was just going to forward the documentation onto you guys to take a look if you're interested in seeing it. If you have any comments about it to me.
Okay. Yeah, we'll take a look at it. All right. Okay. That's it, Laura? All right. So I'm not going to go down the line tonight. I'm just going to ask, does anybody have any, been a late night? Anybody have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss at all? Any comments from the board? Anybody? No? All right. The only thing I got is just one thing, be quick, and that's Laura informed me tonight that Ms. Kim, Alexis Kim, will not be returning to the town as the deputy town attorney. She's obtained other employment. So I just want to thank her for all the support she has provided the board, and give her best wishes on her career moving forward, and big thank you. That's all I have. Okay. All right. If nobody has nothing else, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn.
Motion?
Motion adjourned by Mr. Khan, and seconded. I'll second.
Second.
All right, there's lots of seconds.
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed?
Aye.
Yep. I'm sure there's no one opposed. Thank you everyone for a long night. Appreciate it.